Wow. Wow. Holy cow. I thought I was going to have to do this show alone tonight for a minute.
We have had a day.
Oh my gosh, have we ever? Holy cow. We got the pom-poms out now, though. We're ready to rock and roll and get this done.
Honest to God, I was about to literally just say, "I'm done. Gonna go watch TV.
Check out.
Bye-bye." I couldn't even get my camera to work, so that's what we're talking about. And not only that, but I can see a lag. So I can see myself talking and then my words come later.
Actually, it looks good on my side. I don't see a problem over here. So so welcome everybody to a crazy day. Welcome Brown Dwarf and Laura and Val.
Yeah, welcome. I know I see a bunch of new people on here. We've got a bunch of Onae fans because I see a bunch of new people on here. Yeah. Speaking of Onae, we should have her jump on and welcome everybody because I'm sure these are all her friends.
Yeah, well, I'll bring her in. Hopefully she's well, there she is. Smile, girl. You're on camera.
Hey, thank you for inviting me. It's so good to see you guys.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Finally.
It's been a while. It hasn't. It was been Reno was the last time, I think.
Well, for me now.
Well, I mean, yeah, for you guys, but
for Lee, but not for you. You were here just what, a couple months ago? A month ago?
Trying to think of let's see, when did I go there? When you were getting moved into the house, so
yeah,
time goes by too fast.
You were moving me into the house.
I went all the way from California to Arizona to get her moved in. We had to go to Tucson, which is like an hour away, load up the truck, and then take it back, load it up, and go unload it and get her moved in. So which is about 5 hours from me.
Do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, Onae?
Oh, yeah, that's right. People don't know me, huh? Well, my name is Onae, for those of you that don't know me. And I'm a psychic medium. And can you stop? And the owner of 3 dogs, and 2 are bulldogs and English bulldogs, and one's knocking me around and my chair around. And so yeah, I'm a minister, psychic medium, tarot card reader. I'm originally from back east, New York, Connecticut area, but I live in Arizona now. And yeah, that's, I've had paranormal experiences. I am paranormal. And I've had alien experiences, UFO experience and Bigfoot experience, I think, according to some person who's a professional Bigfoot person, said my experience that I had was probably a Bigfoot experience. So I've had my fair share of little, wackadoo weirdo stuff. So, I've seen and grew up with, shadow entities and people. So it's kind of, a little weird, growing up the way I am. But other than that, everything's great. I do events every now and then. I do private readings. I do I'm all over the place.
Right on.
Was that enough? Should I say more?
Is that enough?
You rival
and
the stuff. Well, yeah.
And
I'm best friends with Jax.
Thank you. Even if I have to pull it out of her.
Yeah. Crowbar. Here's a crowbar.
Yeah, but I just want to say really quick, just in case, because I see a bunch of new names on here. Those of you who don't know us, I'm Jax. I know I'm going to get this wrong. Yeah, there we go.
You got it right. You got it right.
Okay. That looks right.
Lee. Yep. And we're Element 115 here on Spaced Out Radio.
Yep.
And we are actually going to be doing a 3-hour special show tonight. Dave is doing a special thing on his own, taking the night off. And we are actually going to be doing his show for him with his special guest.
That's right. That's right. Right after we're done with on.
Every single time we do this show, I always hear some weird thing happen in my kitchen. Every time. Never fails.
Stop. I said stop.
I've been watching you turn your head since you got on, so you're obviously hearing things there.
You didn't hear the pop just now? It was really loud.
We hear weird things. But you might be hearing this guy here. He wants to.
Oh no, it was like a loud pop over here. I get this every time we do the show. It's weird.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, welcome everybody. We're glad you guys all came and showed up to join us tonight, and we're gonna get to know Onae a little bit better. And let everybody know who else we have coming on, so if they want to stay and
absolutely. So we have Mark Turner coming on, and he's a remote viewer, and he's going to talk a little bit about the ETs and how and what remote viewing has to do with ETs. So I'm looking forward to that, since that's kind of in my wheelhouse. And Jax has done some remote viewing in the past, so I think it's going to be a fantastic conversation, and I can't wait to have it. And we'll have him on for 2 hours.
Yeah. So, and Onae's welcome to stay and hang out with all of us as long as she wants. So if you're interested in remote viewing and ETs. Hi, everyone. Well, let's get right down to the nitty gritty of how Onae and I came into each other's lives here.
Get down.
Okay, we'll let her get onto her dogs first.
I'm going to put you in the crate. You want to go in the crate? Then behave.
I'd like to go in the crate.
Can you see this guy?
I see it all. I see it happening. Yeah.
You're my baby. You're my baby.
That one's in charge.
Yeah. They're good babies. They really are. So.
Yeah. So anyway, let's get started on talking about exactly
my alien experience, my personal alien experience. So you'll hear
like an alien,
little demons and gremlins and things, but it's just my dog's breathing. So, but anyway. I'm gonna end up.
Let us know more about you. Okay, so what do you normally do? How can people find you, and what do you normally do?
what do I normally do? I do psychic readings. I do events, private events, personal readings, private readings. I do live streams when I'm feeling like doing a live stream. I'm a minister. I'm a retired, I'm a retired head pastor of a local church here in Arizona, in Tucson. So, but I retired from that. But mostly I just kind of just do the tarot readings and the psychic medium readings and yeah, remote viewing, whatever comes with that psychic stuff, it's all lumped into one. So, because I was born and raised in a family of tarot card readers and intuitives. So I just grew up with this, and my father was a master astrologer. So I kind of grew up in a woo-woo weird family. So, but yet I was, raised in Catholic school. So I had nuns, during the day and woo-woo at night. So
I think
Perfect
Lee was
balance.
too. Weren't you raised like that, Lee?
I am a Catholic. That's true. Baptized and raised. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's fun. It's interesting. But the fun thing is that it's so, who you can talk to and who you can't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And who, you just kind of survive and you just kind of know. It's called, what is it called? It's just, I wouldn't say survival skills, but I guess that would be it. You just kind of know.
Yeah.
Who can't, who's open to it and who's not, because there's so many people that were raised that way, but you're not allowed to ask questions. And the thing is, I found in the Catholic Church and in the Bible, and so Christianity, just in general, if you read the Bible, chapter 12, 1 Corinthians chapter 12, the whole chapter is basically about people like you and me. So, yeah, it's all right. It's right there in the Bible. So, it's when people try to knock it, and it's like, no, this is a gift from God. Thank you. And I'm here to help you with love. So
I definitely agree with you on the gifts. I feel like that's something that runs in the family. And like I very much have almost identical same gift that my dad had. So I totally understand how that runs in the family.
What? Yes, you're shaking your head. Yes and no.
Well,
No.
I don't think that I can be lumped in with you two the way,
Go.
the stories.
Be gone.
I might have been actually like injected or something like that. Maybe.
Oh Lord.
Yeah, I heard about your injection.
Something else happened to me. I wasn't born with this. I think it came in to me, or I came into it because of what my family has gone through previously, right? But it seemed like my stuff didn't start till, at least until I was maybe 5 or 6. So, yeah.
Well, that's really early. I mean, that's not like,
I wasn't.
I didn't come out of the womb giving card readings with a deck of tarot cards.
What? I don't believe you.
But I was not born into a family that was already psychic, right? So my family were having experiences with aliens and that sort of stuff, abductions. So it's a different deal.
I was really hoping I could stick Lee in a crate.
Well,
he fits in because he's extra small.
I've got 2 sizes. I've got large and medium.
I think I'm good in Washington right now. I think I'm good here. So
that's funny.
You guys have some amazing stories together.
Yeah, we do.
I've heard about them for years, and
oh my gosh, yes, you have got to hear the crazy freaking stories that Jax and I mean, it's like the craziest things from the moment we met. Like the craziest stuff has happened, and she's so good at telling it. So just let her do it.
Oh God, I knew you were gonna freaking try to put this on me. You're the guest here. You're supposed to tell this story.
I know, but you're the storyteller. You are.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well, we're gonna tell this together. Okay, so basically, it starts back in December of 2021. We actually met in Las Vegas at a really fun, paranormal event. And it was really funny actually because we only knew each other from Facebook, really, and we just kind of interacted a little bit.
Yeah, we just
And
started talking a few nights before the event. Right?
Literally a few nights before we went to this event. And for whatever reason, we just hit it off. Like we didn't even know each other yet. And we were like, oh my God, I can't wait to hang out with you.
I know.
And she's like calling me going, get your butt over here to Vegas. I can't wait to see you. And it was hilarious the way we met because we ended up both being in the lobby of the hotel. I think, where were we staying at? Huh?
We were at the MGM lobby bar.
Oh, that's right. We were at the MGM in Vegas. So we're standing in this.
We had just met, and people thought we were like reconnecting from like long time friendship, and we were just like, no, we just met.
So we're both on the phone, right? And I'm like, hey, where are you? I can't wait to see you. She's like, oh my God, I can't wait to see you. And I'm like, I'm in the lobby. She's like, I'm in the lobby. And we literally both turned around and we were standing back to back. So when we turned around, we were literally on the phone looking at each other. So it was really, it was adorable.
Yeah.
So we had a great time there and we hit it off. So we ended up deciding to travel and we would go on road trips together.
Yeah.
And there's this one. I do want you to tell this.
I'm not telling it. You're telling it. But I will say that, I'm being a minister. I offer to be as a gift to officiate a wedding in New Orleans. And so now, so Jax flew into Tucson. I pick her up at the airport, and we were supposed to be doing this live stream of our trip. But my car window broke the day before, and I had to get a replacement. And so I pick up Jax, and she's all cute and adorable with her little bag. And she's all ready for the live stream. And we start driving, and it sounds like we're in a freaking wind tunnel. And she's like, what the hell? We had to shout at each other the whole time. So you go on. You tell the rest of the story.
Oh, my God. So I know she's like, okay, I'm here. I'm just here for the entertainment of Jackie's story. Okay. So we literally leave the airport and get on the freeway, and the windshield obviously wasn't put in properly. And so I'm not kidding you when I thought that thing was just going to take off. Okay. It was like
shoving tissue in my windshield, thinking that's going to save it from.
Yeah. I have a Kleenex box. I'm kidding you not. This is me. I'll fix it. But I was washing these Kleenex up, and I'm shoving them in the corners of this windshield. And she's like, oh yeah, that's going to fix it. And so we had set up, we were going to do a Facebook Live the whole way from the airport till the second we arrived. Now, we had told everybody on Facebook, like, oh my God, probably a month before we even left, we were going to do this. You couldn't hear us. To save your lives, I swear. We tried to turn it on, and then we would go replay it to listen. You couldn't even hear us. And so I'm like, we're not going to be able to do this.
We were shouting
like, oh my God.
We could barely hear each other. It was terrible.
We were, and then to make it worse, I wasn't feeling well. I had some horrible cold.
Everywhere.
This is me. I'm not even kidding you. This is me.
I'm like, will you get a freaking trash bag? This is my car. You putting your germs everywhere.
I think I still got Kleenexes in my car from her.
Oh my gosh.
I'm sure you do. I'm sure. I mean, people could literally clone me from all the Kleenexes I leave around. Okay. So we're on this trip, and we're hightailing it to New Orleans, right? And so we're leaving Phoenix and we're heading to Texas. And we're like, okay, we'll go so far, we'll rest, and then we'll go. So we had this plan to stop somewhere specific in Texas, and we end up getting to this one location, and we're on the main road, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the phone is telling us to turn right and take this shortcut. And we're like, what? And I'm literally on the road, like, oh my God, what do I do? What do I do? It's like as if my brain all of a sudden couldn't function unless I knew like which way to go. And I'm like, okay, what does it say? Well, this one says if you go this way, it's 30 minutes. If we go that way, it's an hour. And we're like, all right, no brainer. So we take this shortcut, okay, that ends up being like 4.5 hours later. And we're still on that road trying to get from point A to point B. And it was supposed to be 30 minutes. Well, unfortunately, that trip ended up being like the most insane night we'd ever had. For safety, we probably would have been like killed, probably. Stopped on this road. But we actually ended up having the best time, and it ended up being like the best story. And I know Lee and I just had a crazy experience, and at first I was like, this is the worst thing ever. Now we talk about it and go like, okay, now we're excited. Well, that's how this happened.
It was the best part of the trip.
Oh my God, it ended up being the best time. So we're driving down this road. It's like one of those one lane each way, right? And so we're driving about maybe 5-10 minutes. And all of a sudden we start realizing that there's like thousands, and I'm not even kidding you when I say this, not like a couple or hundreds, like for hours. I bet you we saw 1,000 at least, if not more, deer standing on the side of the road, and they would be standing there staring at us towards the road. It was like, could you not get any more creepy? Like, this is like the creepiest, weirdest thing we've ever seen. Well, we thought that was weird. Okay. So we keep driving, and about maybe a few minutes later, there's this weird thing out of nowhere comes out and starts to cross the road. Well, I'm driving the car. It was her car, but I'm driving the car. And the weirdest thing was, it was like we went through this weird, strange Matrix moment, because we never slowed the car down, ever. The car never slowed down. We never slowed down.
Nope,
We're probably hightailing it going about 55, 60 miles an hour. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, there's little, I would say it's about the size of a small dog, this little black see-through creature decides to cross the road in front of us. And it was like our car decided to just almost go into like pause, because we watched it as if it was like the car was stopped, but we never stopped.
Yep.
And this thing,
it was so cute.
She always says that, and I swear I say that thing, it was freaking me out. But I have to show you, like, okay, so you know how like a dog would have like normal feet, right? And then it's got its leg. Okay, so imagine this is like a normal foot. And like, well, this thing's legs were like pulled back, and it's like walking on the weirdest part of the leg, and it's like creeping up. Well, it never looks at us. It never acknowledges us. And we're just like looking at it, and we're watching it go by in slow motion. Okay. We can see all the way through it. It's just like as if something electrocuted it, and now you can see through it.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just looking at it like, what is that? You can't tell what it is. It doesn't look like a normal creature or animal. Like it came
from Pet Cemetery. That's what it looks like it came from.
Okay, well, then the strangest thing was we drive up about another mile. Now, after it finally went past, and we're looking at each other, and we're like, what was that? And we're both like, oh my God, I don't know. And then we start describing it, and we're both saying, like, we both saw the exact same thing. And then all of a sudden we see the sign, Pet Cemetery. And I'm like, are you kidding me right now with this? It was insane. So I'm gonna let you tell the rest of the story because you're our guest and I don't want to sit here and talk the whole time. So you tell about the other
you
stuff.
do such a great job with it. Really, you do. You're a great storyteller. And stop. So yeah, no, it was a great ride. It was a great trip. Will you guys stop it? Oh my gosh, you're gonna go in the crate. Sorry. I went shopping today, so I had them in the crate earlier. So now I'm trying to like let them not be in the crate, but now they're getting crazy. So sorry. But yeah, no, the story was it was the trip was amazing. It was fun. We had these deer come out like out of nowhere, like thousands of them. Then we had this like suicidal raccoon who was challenging Jax, like come at me, you know, and she did. I think I have like a raccoon still under my car.
She's not joking when she says suicidal because this thing, I gotta scoot back because you gotta see this. It literally stood like this. Like it was like challenging us. A raccoon. It stood up and it went like this, and it put its head out like, I dare you.
Yeah. And it did. It like just totally challenged her. And so now I think I have like raccoon still on my car, and the deer, I think I have the deer like that was challenging her as well. It's like we're driving and the deer, she almost hits the deer, but she misses it. And it like, it's so pissed off. It kicks my car. So it got like a deer footprint in my hoof print in my
Okay.
car.
Wait. Back it up just for a second. Let me tell you what happened with this deer.
See,
I'm driving. Okay. I literally already ran over the raccoon and I feel like crap about it. And all of a sudden now this deer is in the middle of the road and I'm like, I'm not hitting another animal. So I go, and I swear to God, we went up on 2 wheels. Now the car is like this and we're trying to get around the deer. Onae goes flying and she's in my lap. And then I literally pull the steering wheel back over and we get back down. And I swear, this is no joke. We see this deer literally kick the back of the car. Like it's mad that we missed it.
It was mad. It was. And then where was that big old pit in the road? It was like this hole in the bridge.
That was the next morning.
We missed it.
Okay, but
we could have gone.
Okay, it was a sinkhole. Okay, on the literal freeway. Now, this is the weirdest part. We had all these strange things happening to us for about 4.5 hours on this 30-minute detour. But if we had gone straight and never took that detour, we probably would have ended up in the sinkhole. And the sinkhole took up literally the entire road. And it wouldn't have mattered like what lane we were in. And then so by the next morning, we had actually stopped and slept for a couple hours.
Oh yeah, we parked in front of the little beaver place. What is that?
The Buc-ee's.
The Buc-ee.
Yeah, Buc-ee's restaurant or the store, whatever it's called. And I was like, I don't care where we go. I just want it lit up. That's it. I just want to be somewhere where I'm not freaking out. It was crazy. But it was an interesting thing because we would have ended up in that sinkhole the next day.
Yeah.
And so
that was crazy. And then what else happened? I know there's more. Oh, and then some guy was trying to rip you out of the car to bring you in his truck. So you could be his road wife or whatever it is.
I was just telling him about that not too long ago. We stopped at some gas station. We would always stop every so often and go get a water or coffee or whatever because we were trying to drive straight through.
Or a speeding ticket, whatever.
Yeah, whatever. And I walked in and some guy was walking out and he looked at me and kind of stared at me and watched me for a minute. And so I walked in the store and all of a sudden I realized he's back in the store and he's watching my every move and everything I do. And so I go and I buy the stuff and I go back to the car and she's already in the car. And so I get in the car and all of a sudden this guy's at the window, knock, knock. Hey, hello. And she's not kidding. He was literally Do you want to be like my trucker wife? Like, no.
Yeah.
So
I'm like, no talking to strangers, Dax. No talking to strangers.
and she's like yelling at him, get out the door. It's all, shut the door.
I would have shot his ass. Oop, oh, I'm not supposed to say that, am I? His bum.
Shame on you.
Well,
You're gonna get a
flogging.
flogging.
My friend, so no, she's mine.
Yeah, she's like, get away from her. But anyway, yeah, it was fun. We had a lot of crazy times. And so that's what happened. We ended up missing that hole because we went down that weird road, and
yes,
like, so it was crazy, but
it was crazy.
Anyway,
it was, and that would have been
this is great because I've kind of heard parts and bits and pieces of this story over the past, I don't know, 6-8 months or whatever it is. But you realize that I was following you, both of you, while you were doing this, right? On Facebook.
oh Lord.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah. Like when you were
Stalker.
yeah, I was behind you both. No, I was
Oh,
following
that
you
was
both.
you?
Yeah, I was following you both on Facebook, and watching, when you guys would post the pictures, I would check the pictures out, and I was like, oh, you guys are having a good time together, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. And I didn't realize how poorly it went at the actual wedding until afterwards, until recently when we talked about it, how things went when you were there. But it is such an amazing story. How would Google, supposed to get you to a location, very, very quickly? How would it all of a sudden, put you in this situation where you're driving 4 hours instead of a half an hour or whatever it was? You went from a highway to a dirt road, isn't that correct?
No. It was a regular road. It was it was actually called let me see if I can remember. I think it was like, was it Fredericksburg? Pretty sure. I think that might be.
It was.
I think it was called Fredericksburg, and we drove through.
It was like some psycho movie was like.
Oh
yeah. Okay.
Yes, that's right. So when we finally got to the location where we were with our friends in right outside New Orleans, we were telling them this crazy story.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to Onae when we were on that road, I said, oh my God, this reminds me of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And so when we told them like where we were, the town we went through, and he's like, oh my God, that's where the Chainsaw Massacre happened. And we were like, wait, what? That's what I said. Well, I actually have, I'm not going to share it, but I actually have a video of us. Like we're literally now holding the phone, recording the road as we're delirious and we're laughing and we're crying from laughing, and it's just hysterical. It's about an hour long.
Oh my God,
but oh my God, that was an adventure. So now we talk about it. It's like, that's the best time we ever had.
It was like the most insane, unbelievable. Like if it wasn't the two of us experiencing it at the same time, I would have thought I was just hallucinating these weird things, and like it could not have been. It was like it would just been a wild dream or something. But no, it was actually really happening. And these are like, and so some people are asking how does this happen to you? Well, one, we are both magnets to extra things, and so it's. Things are drawn to us like that. Spirits are drawn to us. Energy is drawn to us. Just spirit animals, just anything unusual energetically wise. We just especially when we're emanating, when we're together. I mean, you can't even be in the same room with us energy wise, because we will knock you out of the room. We will knock you into tomorrow with our energy. So, but it's that's what it is. It's drawn to our energy because we just have so much fun, and all we do is laugh and cry because we're laughing so hard. But but we always seem to have crappy ass. Oops, I keep saying that word. I'm so sorry. Aspirin trips, and it's like, but they end up being the best memories ever. I mean, I've never been on a
You
train
did.
before, but boy, one time I was on a train with her on another road trip, and that was definitely interesting. And then it was like, what is that? What is that movie, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles and
Oh,
things like
that was us.
That was us. It was, yeah. And we were Ubers and trains and
Oh
planes.
no,
and
you should totally tell them.
No, you
Tell them what we went through.
You tell them the story. You tell them the story. You're so good at this. I love
This is
listening
why you're here to share
I-
the stories.
I will just confirm everything.
Apparently, she's here for moral support, I think.
I guess so. Well, the funny thing is that we've actually been to Virginia City a couple times, several times, multiple times, and
Yeah, multiple times, yes.
yeah, and we actually had at that time a friend that was gonna come pick us up from the airport, and we were all going to travel together. And we were going from we actually I flew in from San Diego. She flew in from Phoenix, I think, or
Yes.
Tucson. And we flew into Sacramento, California. And then a friend of ours was going to pick us up and take us up to Reno and Virginia City. And lo and behold, the night before our flight, they call us and let us know they're not coming for us. And so I'm like, oh my God. And she's like, what are we going to do? And I'm like, we'll figure it out when we get there.
Yep.
Well, we end up landing and we're like, all right, we got to figure this out. So we end up talking this guy into like an Uber guy. We end up talking him into driving us all the way up to Virginia. No, not all the way up to Virginia City. Where did he meet? He took us to Tahoe, I think.
Tahoe. And then we had a friend of mine that was there he was already in Virginia City, and he drove all the way back to Tahoe to come get us and meet the Uber guy. So,
oh my God. Well,
it was definitely interesting, but that was after I tried
crazy.
renting a car, but they wouldn't let us do it for some reason. And I'm like, why do we, and I could rent a car at any other time. So I don't understand why I couldn't do it that day. You know,
Yeah.
It was so weird.
Oh yeah. Well, I forgot about that.
Yeah. Yep. And then we were driving around in the airport, like in circles, and they were getting mad at us, like being on the train, on the bus. Do you remember that guy? Or there was like somebody that was mad at us because we kept driving around in a circle, like 3 times on that tram.
Oh my God. We had more. We would get off one thing and we would be like, all right, what's next? And then we ended up we had on the way back, we had this crazy train ride. And I mean,
don't forget the hotel. Don't forget the freaking hotel room. How we were supposed to have 2 separate rooms and they stuck us in.
Oh my God. It was one thing after another. It was literally like the movie, like as if we were doing a movie.
And we're like, what if we didn't know each other? And we only had one bed. And we're like, well, we love each other. So what? You know, we'll snuggle.
Yeah. Well, we ended up actually staying in one of the most haunted rooms. And we would be like hanging out in the room, and all of a sudden, like a washcloth would go flying.
Flies across the room. Flies. And she's just like freaking out. And I'm like, yeah. And then
Was that the same hotel at the top of the stairs there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
The very first room when you go up the top of the stairs to the I'm drawing a blank. What's the name? The
Silver Queen.
You have to explain the stairway to everybody, because that stairway
up on all fours and bring an inhaler and take like a 5-minute break in the middle.
It's
God
like,
forbid if you're drunk.
Yeah, it's like going up 2.5 flights of stairs, just one at one clip, and they're super steep and they're not level. So when you're walking up these stairs, you're already out of kilter trying to get up these stairs. And it's as soon as you get to the top, there's a wall right there, and you've got to make an immediate left down this narrow corridor. But the ceilings in there are super high. They're super high up once you get up there.
Yeah.
It's just a strange feeling when you're in that building. It is unlike any other hotel that I've ever
Mhm.
been in my
It was
entire
fun
life.
though. It was fun. The scariest part for me, Lee, was the bug that and was on my side of the bed. And she's just sitting on the bed, like, oh well, whatever, and not ignoring it. And I don't like bugs, so I'm like freaking out because she's just like ignoring it. I mean, she's more scared of a freaking washcloth flying across the room than this freaking bug that's about to attack me. And you know, that's tangible. I mean, a washcloth flying, okay, whatever. But a bug is tangible. It's like attack me. And she's like just
What
ignoring
kind
it.
of bug are we talking? Like a beetle?
Well, it's a really big bug. It was like
It's
massive. It was a big bug.
I'm a camper. I
And
camp.
so
There's
I'm
bugs.
really,
There's
I'm running around
creatures.
going, I need a man, help.
There's Bigfoot outside. I mean, a bug's not going to bug me.
People came in from off the street and up and, you know, running up the stairs to come help, you know, because out of their rooms. And they helped me get the bug out. She just sat there and was like, what is your problem?
Was there anything else that happened in that room besides the washcloth?
Oh my gosh, yeah, we had lots of stuff happen, but Jax had more of the issue, or not issue, experience, I should say, in the room than I did, because I went off and did my own thing once in a while. So
Yeah.
but she
So
was happy.
You left her alone in the room with the bug?
No, I did not leave her alone. Oh, she would have been fine if she was just the bug. She had like a room full of people. She like gathered like this entourage of people to have a little investigation in the room, which I was like, great, I'm out of here. I don't want to know what's going on in this room. So I left.
I gotta go. I'm having a party. Go.
Yep.
It was just a lot of my friends, you know, live in the area, and we just ended up doing an investigation in the room, which was quite interesting actually, because all of the answers that we were getting back on the spirit box were these two women who were talking like about basically being ladies of the night. Like they were literally describing things like sexual things, and just, I mean, I was blown away. I was just like, whoa, like I didn't expect that at all. So it was interesting. I didn't think we were going to get much, and then it was just nonstop the whole time, and I was blown away. So there were some friends in there that had never been in the hotel before, so that was kind of fun. But yeah, I can't remember how many people were in
Was
the
that
room.
before or after you we had the experience at the Bonanza? Was that
I
trip,
think,
or was there another trip that we had? Was that the second trip?
I think so. I think so. Yeah, because yeah, we went back, and we had a very weird experience. I'm gonna have you tell the story, because like you definitely remember a lot of that.
Let's hear the story.
I wasn't
You
there
what?
for that story.
At the Bonanza.
Oh, the Bonanza is really great. You want to go there for an experience. Yeah, definitely. There's all kinds of energy there that you would just it just, you know, of all of the places that I've been to, and I've been to quite a few places in Virginia City.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say, I think the strongest, most prominent experience I've had was in the Bonanza. I love the Delta, but it was the Bonanza that I had the most intense, multiple experiences every time I went there. Multiple in one visit. It would be like within like what, a couple hours, Jax? It was like, that's what it was, 2-3 hours maybe. And it was just like so much happened. So many different energies and entities. It was definitely something to really, if you're planning on going there, check out the Bonanza, if they'll let you anymore. I don't know if they'll let you anymore because things have changed. So
Yeah, they have new owners now.
So
yeah, but yeah, we have a lot of fun. But actually, you know, the three of us were there a couple months back.
Yeah.
And we actually had a really good time with that whole group, like our SOR fan party, and we were all up there. So, you know, some of the people watching here. I know Tim was there, but we had a great time walking through Virginia City, and we actually had some really interesting things happen while we were there. And one of the things that was very strange for me was I was having very weird things happen to me after getting home for like, oh my gosh, it seemed like maybe a month and a half. And I did not know this, but apparently another couple that was there with us in the group went home with something weird happening with them. And I didn't know that. And yeah, but anyway, Lee, go ahead and tell them about like the story about what happened with the orb. So
Well, there was
orb.
so there was several there were several orb experiences in Virginia City. The one that's, I had never seen an orb with my own eyes. I've seen them on camera, taking pictures in the cemetery and that sort of thing, and they're flying around. I've even caught black orbs on film, or not film, on camera. But the one that I saw, Jax was in front of this building. I don't even remember what the building was. It looked like a store, but it's an old building. And the lady that was giving us the tour said that sometimes there's a little girl that comes to the window, to the door, and you might be able to see her spirit, or she likes you, she might touch you, or show up. And I saw this little ball of light, looked like a dust ball, but it's nighttime, and this thing floats down, touches the back of Jax's heel, and then goes into the building. But Jax is like, I was just touched. Did you see that, or did you see it? And I'm like, yeah, I saw it. And she's like, I felt it. And she wasn't even facing it. She was actually facing inside the building, and I was just behind her. And so I saw it happen. And to see an orb and to get somebody's reaction right away when that orb touches them, I mean, for me, that was like an aha moment. That an orb can affect the physical in some way. So that for me was amazing to witness. Just absolutely amazing. There was nothing ever scary. I don't find any fear in any of this stuff. It's all fascination for me. It's amazing. It's the neatest stuff ever, I think, really.
Yeah.
And then when we were back in the cooler, and I think that was a bar where we were.
Oh, yeah. I'm trying to think of what they called that. Yeah, I can't remember the name. Maybe Tim remembers, but there's a name back there.
Yeah, it's like they call it a cooler or something, the dungeon or the crypt, or I don't know what it is back there. But that's where they kept everything cold, because they didn't have electricity for freezers and that sort of thing back in the day. So they put things underground a lot of the time to keep them from spoiling. Well, that's what the back of this building was. It was tucked into the hillside. It was all rock, hand-laid rock and mortar back there. And it's very dark. When you go in there, the air feels so thick.
Yeah, it was called the Crypt. Tim was there.
Yeah, Crypt. Okay, so it was just the air was so heavy and dense and thick back there. No negative feelings or anything like that, but
there's the Crypt right there.
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. It was behind there.
With my stupid button front.
So while I was back there, you could definitely feel energy or whatever. So I just took my phone and started clicking away, because you could feel something. And lo and behold, when I went and looked, there was a bluish white orb in there, and that's
and there was cool. And I have pictures of orbs, 2 different orbs that at that same time that we were all there, and it went right in front of Tim and I.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we were right there in that room, and
Yeah.
and the orb went right past us and like right towards my phone. So
Oh, that's a
yeah.
good picture, by the way.
Yeah,
this
that is a good one.
I don't know if I have the one with the where I can find. I don't know if the one with here's the one with the orb, but you can't really see the orb in the picture. You have to it's one of those moving pictures.
Yeah, yeah.
And kind of
My camera is doing all this weird movement. Are you guys
Yeah,
seeing that?
I've noticed. I've been watching your camera do that for
Okay, it's weird.
like
I
a
thought it was
half
just
hour.
me. I'm like, what's happening?
And I
Okay.
think what happens is sometimes when you get too far away from your camera, it starts to do that.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna
Yeah.
try to sit still.
These are some
Yeah.
pictures from the event.
Aw. Cute.
In that hotel with the really steep stairs, when we got to the top of the stairs there, and we were all kind of gathered up as a group in that location, I took some pictures. And there was some light that was coming in from the window behind into that hallway. And I got what looks like a mist trying to form into something there, right in that location as well. And I've just never been in a real haunted place like that. Like I went to an insane asylum here in Washington State, Northern State Hospital, and there was some stuff going on there. But that place has so much of it, so much. You could go anywhere in that town and have experiences, I'm sure.
All right, we have a question. Let's see. Do any of you get so cold when they pop in? Oh, yeah, I've definitely had that experience. What about you guys?
I haven't had experiences with extreme cold, no, with related to spirits. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I do. I get cold. They give you the chills. You get cold, or sometimes they come in and they can make you warm, depending upon the energy. But yeah, sometimes it is cold when they do come in. So yeah, and also when they try to tap in, because we wear our meat suits, so but they don't. So their energy vibrates at a much higher vibration. And so when they try to touch in and connect with us, we just, because we vibrate slower with our meat suits. So it raises the anxiety almost a little bit too, as well, in our energy. So that's kind of another thing, is when you can kind of almost feel like your lungs are filling up and you're having anxiety and you're getting a little chill. That's like them tapping into your energy, trying to communicate with you. So
yeah. Well, speaking of that, you normally do readings for people. You have people call in, or you do like what, face to face on YouTube? Tell people exactly like how can they get a reading if they want a private reading?
if they want a reading, they can get one at onae.org. That's ONAE, which is my name, .org, O-R-G. And they can go through my whole website and check it out. There's the schedule a rating page, and that's where you click on that and you can schedule. And right there, then and there, you just go through, it walks you through the whole process of scheduling an appointment with me. I do have it where I only have 2 days where they can schedule an appointment on there, because I do like to leave flexible days and times for other people who can't make those days. So if anyone really wants anything other than if those 2 days that I have available on there, which I think is Tuesday and Thursday right now, but I switch it around every now and then depending upon my mood. But I can, they can always just private message me, or ask, or go into my website and ask if they can get another, a reading, on a different day at a different time. And I'm typically pretty flexible. I'm not a morning person, so I'm barely human in the morning. So don't ask me for morning appointments ever. But yeah, no, I'm really flexible. I love doing readings. I love helping people. Because I love to help, because you're not only helping, we psychic mediums, we're not only helping the people here on this side of the veil, but we're also helping the energies and souls on the other side, because they have a message that they want to deliver. And sometimes they kind of feel stuck over there, and don't want to move on or move away from the energies here that they're connected to, because out of some kind of guilt or some kind of just whatever their reasoning is, that they feel that they need some kind of, Oh, thank you, Tim. I appreciate that. So you guys need to totally like carpool like to my house. Totally. I have guest rooms. So
I've stayed there already. I know. But
I know.
I have a question about the readings for people out there who've never had a reading before. Can you kind of give it like a little explanation on how a reading works? Like, do they have to have their own questions, or do you just read their energy?
Whichever they prefer. If they want to come in with certain energies and certain questions, then yes, I can totally, I'm really flexible with my abilities. It's, I can do pretty much almost anything. So whatever they're really wanting. I mean, it's like, in the reading, if it's going to be like a shorter reading, that if they choose a shorter time frame, then they really need to come in with questions, preferably, because that half hour goes by super fast. And but typically the hour is like it's a good time where, we talk, I give psychic messages. I'm already, as soon as you come in, whether it be on video like this or on phone or in person, I'm already tapping. And with that, I'm already I'm talking to you, and I'm already reading you. I'm already giving you your reading. But then I'm shuffling. Sometimes I just shuffle the cards, and as I'm shuffling, I'm still giving messages because it's just energy flowing. All it is just basically me channeling energy from source energy, spirit. That is basically, road trip, is basically just kind of like letting it flow, because this message is for you, not for me. So and I'm very chill. I'm relaxed. It's very comfortable. I do whatever you want. So if you're just interested in mediumship, we'll focus only on mediumship. If you just want a tarot reading, then that's basically what I do. Because people are, you've got all different kinds of people who, some are afraid of the tarot and some are afraid of spirits. So you have to accommodate, and some want it all. And then, if you do, I can tackle it all for you, whatever you're wanting. It's all out of energy of love. I do not do voodoo. I do not tell you that you're going to have a curse. I do not tell you when you're going to die, because we're all going to die eventually, and we're not dying in 2025 unless you're scheduled to. So
scheduled.
I would not like to be on those books, please.
I'm going to be here for quite a while. I have a feeling. So, my
I hope so.
Yeah, my grandfather lived to be 101. So we're solid in my family. So I'm not going anywhere. So, but yeah, no, my readings are just comfortable. I try to make you comfortable, and whatever you're wanting and needing. So, and I can do pretty much anything that you're looking for. So.
Just to let everybody know, Dave's actually out tonight, and it's just going to be, actually, unless Onae decides to stay on with us, Lee and I are actually doing the next 2 hours. So if you guys are on here, just hold on, because we actually have our next guest coming in.
Yep, we do. Mr. Mark Turner coming in shortly.
Come on in.
Well, I want to go ahead and play our outro and the short intro here, and then we'll bring him in. Are we good with that?
Okay.
Okay. Let's do it. So... All right.
All right, welcome back.
All right. Looks like we can only have 3 at a time on the screen. It looks like here. Hold
Oh,
on.
we can fix it. Hi, Mark. Welcome to Spaced Out Radio.
Hey, good evening. Thanks. Can you hear me okay?
Oh,
we
yeah.
can. How are
Excellent.
you?
Doing well, thanks. Glad to be here.
Well, we're
Let's
glad you're
see.
here. Why don't we get started by you letting everybody know exactly who you are and what you do?
All right. My name is Mark Turner. I live in Raleigh, North Carolina. I have been an experiencer all my life. I'm a Navy veteran. You might have noticed by my coffee mug. And sort of a consciousness explorer. By day, I'm sort of a tech geek. I work in IT, but I've always had a sort of a paranormal kind of streak to me, and certainly a curiosity for things out there that we don't really have solid scientific explanations for now. So I think it's an amazing, interesting world, and I've kind of had fun kind of unraveling these puzzles as I go, you know.
Right on.
That's awesome.
Right on. So
I love that area that you live in too.
Yeah, I've heard that you're a Navy vet, which is fantastic. Thank you very much for your service to the country.
Yeah,
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
Now, were you a remote viewer in the Navy?
I wish I'd known about the program when I was in the Navy. I served from 1988 to 1992 and only found out later that the remote viewing project was going on. But I did have several very interesting experiences while I was in the Navy. And, you know, had anybody read me into the program, I would have very quickly volunteered.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm sure you would have. So where did you learn how to do remote viewing?
Well, I first found out about it on late night radio here in America. You know, the old Art Bell show had some of the initial remote viewers on, and Lee and I were kind of talking about this before the show, how he appreciated that I was very measured, I guess, in the things that I accept. So I would listen to the show. I would hear these outlandish claims by people like, you know, Major Ed Dames that this comet's coming in or whatever, you know, and it's going to kill everybody. And so I thought, well, this is just showmanship, right? There's nothing to this. But then a couple weeks later, I think some of the other remote viewers from the program came on, men like Joe McMonagle and Paul H. Smith and Lynn Buchanan. And I started to look into their credentials and thought, well, that's, you know, these people aren't off their rockers here. There's obviously something to this. So I volunteer locally for the Ryan Research Center nearby, which has been studying consciousness forever, since the 30s. You know, Dr. J.B. Ryan was the first person to coin the phrase extrasensory perception. And through my volunteering, I heard Joe McMonagle was actually going to be performing this remote viewing workshop. This is probably back in maybe 2006. So I went to the workshop on that weekend, and it totally blew my mind when I realized that I was doing things that, you know, prior to this had no, probably actually still has no scientific explanation. But when you do something with your own eyes, basically, and you see it for yourself, that changes your whole worldview. And so that's kind of how I got started.
Wow. Yeah,
Well,
I've
I
actually
know
done remote viewing myself, working in the paranormal over the years, and I actually had no knowledge of really what that was prior, and it just started happening for me. I grew up with paranormal from a very, very early age. I was about 4 and when it started for me, but the remote viewing didn't come until probably about like maybe 7 or 8 years ago.
Okay, very
And
interesting.
it just happened out of nowhere, and it was very strange for me because I really didn't know much about it. And then when
Well,
something came up, I started asking more questions.
the thing about remote viewing is that when I mention that, it's really a specific way of, I consider remote viewing to be a framework for psychic functioning. So you can get all this intuition, you can get this spontaneous things, clairvoyance, telepathy. You know, I could go through the whole list of psychic functioning, but remote viewing itself is really applied psychic functioning, where you are deliberately sitting down, you are blind to the target, you are getting this information because it is an intention that you sit down and actually do this. So, but it's really sort of something kind of tacked on top of psychic function, maybe like you experience. But when you practice remote viewing, it's like working a muscle like anything else. Your psychic intuition will get stronger as you do it. And other interesting experiences will sort of follow along with that. And you'll find out that you do know things spontaneously that you didn't know before. Like when your friend is about to call you, or when you're experiencing something dangerous, you might have an insight that, okay, something's about to happen. And I've got a few stories about that I'm happy to talk about this evening.
Oh, I'd love to hear that.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
lots of stuff. So it's really just a way of tuning in your psychic ability and making it practical. That's basically what remote viewing is.
Yeah, we'd love to have you share those stories if you don't mind.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So I've always had, the ability to sort of not necessarily see things that people do, but knowing that things are going to happen. In high school, I started to keep a dream diary, and of things. Right before I went to school, I just jot down everything I got in my dream, and I started to notice in the span of several weeks that everything that I had dreamt would come true that day. And situations that I had seen in my dream, maybe I didn't interpret it quite the same way, but you'd look at all the details and I'd know like what somebody was about to say or what they were about to do. And I was always a big, science kid. I followed the space program, with the astronauts. I had pictures of those on my wall growing up, and I was very much grounded in the idea that, this stuff couldn't happen. But when I was face to face with it, seeing these dreams come true, it made me start to think, well, maybe the descriptions that people have had about how reality really works isn't quite the way we expect it. So I would have I get this feeling of energy, when you're around ghosts, and sometimes smell phantom smells. For some reason, the sense that that ghosts have seem to be the strongest for me. And I've gone on a few ghost hunts where I've smelled things out of the blue. I've seen UFOs, of course, and that's the other part of my talk tonight. And I've kind of got a chicken and egg conundrum now, where I'm trying to decide, is the reason that I've seen UFOs and actually interacted with aliens because I've always been psychic and curious about this, or is it sort of an aspect of some kind of interaction I've had with them where they've helped me along? And I've got some evidence that I can talk about tonight that go either way. So,
oh, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
I know Lee's on the edge of his seat over here. He's like, wait a minute, what?
Yeah. So I talked about my dreams and stuff in growing up in high school, and then when I got in the Navy, there would be this was a very interesting experience, and it sort of crosses the line between psychic stuff and aliens. I'm honestly not sure how to classify it even today. But I'd gone to boot camp. I served in the Navy, go Navy, beat Army. And back in March 1988, I was in boot camp. I was through my 5th week of boot camp, or at least in my 5th week. And I won't bore you with all those details, but I went to bed one night after everybody else, except for the one poor soul that was working the fire watch down at the end of the berthing area. And my head hit the pillow. And then all of a sudden things got really weird. The room started spinning. I couldn't tell whether my eyes were open or closed, but one thing that I did know was that I was completely paralyzed.
Wow.
Could not move anything but my eyes. And then I heard this whooshing sound in my head. So I'm lying there going, this is really interesting. And up until that point, I'd only had like 5 weeks of military service, right? And I'd seen all the movies where like some guy wakes up and he can't move in bed, and in boot camp, it's because he's about to get a beat down, right? And so I'm sitting there going, okay, nobody's hitting me with socks or anything. So, I mean, it's not that. And I knew I was the only one awake. but I can't move, right? And then I hear this weird voice booming in my head. It sounded like a synthesizer voice almost, but it was super loud and overdriven, like, you know, it was like a computer almost. And it told me, "You don't want to fight." And that sound echoed in my head for about 10 seconds. And I'm sitting there going, okay, I can't move. I don't know what's going on. I kind of do want to fight, right? I don't really like this at all. So I put all my willpower into just getting up and moving and picking my arms up and everything. And then somehow I broke through whatever was happening. And I sat up in bed and I looked at my watch, and I swear like only 18 to 20 seconds had gone by since my head had hit the pillow. But that was really odd. And then the very next day, I got a newspaper. It was only one of the few times when I was in boot camp that I was allowed to go to the base exchange and buy a paper. But the very next day, there was a story in the Orlando Sentinel about the Gulf Breeze UFO sightings that had been going on right there. And I thought,
Oh, wow.
that's a very interesting coincidence.
Very.
And that particular experience adds into something that happened later on, which I'll be happy to talk about later on. But yeah, that was really odd. And because I was in line to get a security clearance, I didn't tell anybody about what had just happened. I was like, you know, they're going to send me out to deck division, and I'm going to be tying up the ships for a living. You know, I don't really talk about this. And I did actually get my clearance later on, but kept that secret for a good long time because I didn't want people to think I was nuts. And now here I am going on a nationwide, worldwide TV program talking about this stuff. So I've kind of come a long way as far as sharing the things that have happened to me.
Well, I love it.
Yeah, it's great stuff. Have you ever had someone ask you to remote view the moon?
Oh, remote viewing the moon. This leads into one other very interesting aspect I've had. I generally tend to avoid remote viewing what they call esoteric targets, the moon, aliens, ETs. I've had experiences with them myself. Well, not the moon, actually, but aliens and ETs. Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't rule out the moon, too. I'll say that.
It could be, yeah.
I don't honestly know, but I'll get into that in a moment. It was back in 2006 again, the same year I did the remote viewing class, which could have some kind of crazy connection in itself. But it was December 26th, 2006. Okay. I'm sitting in my home, beautiful day outside in Raleigh. The sun is shining. It's breezy. I'd seen a hawk flying around in my backyard earlier that day. So I'd had my camera out and I'd been taking pictures of it. But at this time, I was sitting in my living room reading a book about aliens on the moon. It's Ingo Swann's book, Penetration. Are you familiar with that at all?
I'm not familiar with it, but I know of it.
Yeah,
you know,
well, I had heard rumors about it, and it was out of print at the time. And so I found a copy that I downloaded from the internet. So back then, that's kind of what you had to do. You had to pirate it if you wanted to read it. So I'd printed it out, and I was reading this story about aliens on the moon about 3:00 in the afternoon. So I sit it down, decide that I'm going to go outside and refill my bird feeder because my bird feeder was empty. So I take a break from the book. I walk outside. My feeder was on a hook on the window right above me. So it's something that I had to use a pole to unhook and fill up. So I'm out there standing around with this hook, trying to get my feeder off. And as I'm standing there, I noticed something coming towards me in the sky. And I put my hook down and I start going through my list of things that it could be. I was a trained intelligence operative in the Navy on the Snoopy team, on the ship Snoopy team. And my job during there, and it was a side job, but my job then was like whenever something interesting flew by or sailed past us, I would go out and take pictures of it and make notes. If there were any interesting, antennas or cameras or any special weapon systems on it or something I was supposed to do. So I was on the Snoopy team that you might hear about in ufology. So I was familiar with things that were flying around, and I went through my list. It's not a bird. It's not a plane. It's not a helicopter. It doesn't seem to be a balloon. By the time I got through my list of things, it had floated past the trees, but it must have gotten maybe within probably 100 yards of me, and it was up just maybe 500 feet or so, maybe even lower than that. And it was right then when I remembered that I had my camera inside with the telephoto lens on it, just 20 feet away inside. And I'm like, oh, darn, why didn't I go grab my camera? But what I saw was unlike any UFO that I had expected. You imagine a silvery disc or a saucer shaped thing. It wasn't like that at all. It was, I wanted to say it was like a flying squirrel. There was multiple points to it. And that was one of the things that made it really hard for me to identify, because I kept looking for like a wing and, an appendage like a plane has. And it was nothing like that. It was dark, like a charcoal gray, like a lump of coal, and almost looked like like I said, a flying squirrel or a blowfish, a round. Yeah, it had little like spikes on the end of it, and it just floated, like I said, directly in my view, and then headed off almost over my house. So afterwards, I'm kind of stunned, right? And I'm thinking like what are the odds that I would be reading about, aliens on the moon, and then that very second I would look up and I would see a UFO flying over my house. And the only thing I can think of is that it was there to see me. It was there for me to see it. It had come by. It was just because it was nothing like I would have expected at all.
Yeah, alien, or the UFOs were in your consciousness from reading the book. So you're already in that frame of mind. That's exactly what happened to me in Linwood, Washington.
Yeah, totally. I don't know your story. I know a little bit about Dave's experience, your story, but I'd love to hear a little bit more about what happened to you. So,
oh well, I can send you.
There's a video I can send. Yeah, I'd love to see it.
Yeah, I've got video too, but go on. So you weren't into looking at esoteric things necessarily. What about like ancient sites or anything like that? Did you ever remote view anything like that?
Yeah, I've done some practice targets for Joe McMoneagle, and one that really blew my mind is when we were in the workshop. I was given a target that was one of the Greek ruins, and it was it wasn't super like in depth operational training, but I had wound up drawing these broken columns basically from this old building, and everything lined up almost exactly with the photograph that was in the envelope. And that was one of the first times that it totally blew my mind. I've also followed the research of people like Dr. Stephen Schwartz, who worked with Ingo Swann and Hella Hamid to do what he called the Alexandria Project, which was tasking them on some of the ruins in Egypt, and they were very successful in finding these ancient sites that were buried under sand, basically at the time. So he's not Dr. Stephen Schwartz actually was one of the pioneers in remote viewing, and some of that work is still amazing. So there's nothing keeping everybody from doing that kind of stuff today. I'm sure there's lots of shipwrecks and things and ancient civilizations still to be found on our planet.
Yeah, I'm sure myself and millions of other people want to know what's under the Sphinx today, because we've heard stories and stories and stories.
Yes. I think that there's a lot I think to that site that first off, I don't think any of those things are tombs designed for tombs. I think they had like a legitimate purpose, but and I think they might be related to very, very ancient technology, but that's just speculation on my part.
Right. Is it linear when you're looking at things, or as far as time is concerned, can you only look in the now?
No, this is really cool. And during the workshop that I mentioned earlier, one of the first times I was exposed to this was when Joe had told everybody, okay, we're going to work the next target. There's probably 30 of us in this classroom at the Rhine in Durham. So it was a little bit different from the ones we'd done where he had, explicitly laid down this envelope and said, we're going to do this. So, we worked this target. Everybody's just kind of drawing stuff that comes to mind and writing down their impressions. And then he says, all right, we're done. And I thought, well, he never showed us the target. How could we be done? he invited somebody up to the front where the table was at, and he had 6 envelopes, double
Yeah.
sealed envelopes, lying down on the right there on the table. And he said, all right, here, take this die, roll the die, and tell me what the number is. So my fellow classmate did that, and it was like number 5. So Joe reached down, he picked up the envelope and pulled out the photograph, and almost everybody in the room had drawn that particular target. And like my jaw dropped at that point. Like we just
Wow.
worked a target that we didn't even know about until after. How did that work? And
Yeah.
and Joe made the point is that remote viewing, it doesn't matter time or place. And that really rocked my world. We had seen somehow in the future, and anybody can do this. Anybody can learn how to remote view and do that sort of thing. So there's a protocol in remote viewing called associative remote viewing. And that is where you sort of put remote viewing to work doing future forecasting, basically. It's really good for binary questions like either or, this team or that team, yes or no, higher or lower. But if you do that often enough, it becomes statistically significant. I've got to put that in, based on my Rhine scientific sort of background. I'm a board member of the Rhine. So so I've worked some of these ARV targets. There's usually an annual convention that a man named Marty Rosenblatt runs in Las Vegas. Usually, it's called the Applied Precognition Project. And I went there because it has a lot of remote viewing celebrities that go in. They talk about remote viewing. They'll do a presentation, and then the whole crew. It's funny, like Las Vegas invites this whole truckload of psychics to come in and set up shop in the casino. So I was like, do you really know what these people are doing here, guys? I mean, come on. So we worked in between the presentations, we'll work a remote viewing target. And I was sitting down at a table with like 5 other people, and we worked this target. They said, okay, tell me the photograph you're going to see at the end of this event.
Yeah.
Okay. And so our tasking as a remote viewer is to just, draw or sketch whatever might be in the envelope at the end of the event. So the way ARV works is that you have a photograph associated with one outcome or another. So rather than try to see what a sports team is going to be, either the Tigers or the Braves or whatever, you look at an apple and say a pencil. Those are the photographs. So at the end of their game, you are only shown one photograph. Normally, that's the best way to make it work. And as a remote viewer, you focus on like, what photograph am I going to see at the end of it? So, so I worked this, and I drew this dark sort of area that seemed to be wide open, and it had like a splash of red sort of in the middle, and what seemed to be like a tree line. And I sort of sketched all this, and I turned it in, and I said, I don't know what this is all about. I don't know if I really connected. And in ARV, there's a person who is a judge and looks at the photographs and decides if it's going to be one way or the other. So my judge, John, looked at that and said, Mark, maybe you ought to go down to the betting table and put some money on this. And that's all he told me. And so, okay, like, fine. I went down, and I don't do any gambling or wagering or bet. I had no idea how all this worked. But based on John's suggestion, I put down like all the money I had left. It was like $150. I put it down and said, okay, this is the team. And what we were doing was like the over under for a baseball game that was going to happen later that afternoon. So we did that. We broke and had dinner and everything. And the game took place about 6 o'clock or whatever. I'm upstairs in my hotel room watching this game. And my prediction was like it was going to be below 9. There were only going to be 9 runs in the whole game. The very first inning, there were 8 runs. And
Wow.
I'm going, this is going to be a long game, and I'm like 1 run shy of losing this. So I'm like, I don't know if this is going to work. And it turns out it did. And I won an additional $150. And so I stormed back down to John. Yeah, thank you. I stormed back down to John, and I said, I want to see my feedback. Don't make me waiting longer. So he pulled out the photograph, and it was a picture of the Northern Lights.
Oh,
in
that's
Alaska,
amazing.
With a field and the red splotch of aurora there. And I was like, wow, that really was a really good thing. So afterwards, I'm thinking about like, how did I do that? Did I see the future? Did I go back in the past and send my past self like the image? And then I thought, does it really matter? It kind of works either way. But for me, it sort of, I started thinking it might just be that there's only now, that time doesn't really exist. And I was able to somehow see a wider idea of now. And I think that remote viewing kind of teaches you how to do that. Yeah. So that was very interesting use of time there.
Yeah.
I had a question for you about, have you ever had a remote view of a place or something that you just don't understand? Like you can't make sense of it and it sticks in your mind.
Yes, it does happen. And I want to preface a lot of this by saying I feel like I have dozens of sessions under my belt. I'm not like a wizened remote viewer, but I do run our remote viewing group at the Rhine every month. We get together and we do some practice targets. That does happen. There's data that you don't normally deal with. And so if you were trying to answer a question with remote viewing for something like a medical issue that somebody might be having, which, remote viewing could be useful in that regard. It's helpful to have a remote viewer who has some medical training, who can sort of make sense of these impressions that you get. For me, when I do remote viewing, it's almost like getting this big ball wrapped up of all these senses that kind of gets thrown to me. And then I have to peel off the various things on this ball and sort of process them. So you get this data all at once, and then you got to train your mind to sort of unravel this big puzzle that you get. And that in itself is challenging when you're learning how to discern what that information is. But then, on top of it, if somebody gave me a medical target, I might be able to explain some of the procedures or some of the things that might be wrong, but I would not be, able to discuss with a doctor, okay, this is the kind of thing you need to do. Maybe as a medium that's getting information, that might be one way that you could get that information and provide it, assuming that you've got some help on the other side of somebody who understands medicine. But it's really important, I think, that that remote viewers get trained in these types of fields in order to offer useful information. So as for me, I would be useless on a lot of those types of sessions,
Do you think that anyone can actually learn to remote view?
I think that the testing that was done at SRI in the 70s, when they were kind of developing this new remote viewing protocol, showed that just about everybody can do it. And there's something that they termed the beginner effect, where often a skeptic would come into the office and they'd say, well, this stuff is just bunk, you can't do it. And then they'd say, okay, well, you try it yourself. We'll give you a target and, you can judge for yourself. And more often than not, that person would have an outstanding session and pull in the information. And like I said, that is a world-changing event when that happens. You just don't look at the world differently. You definitely look at the world differently after that. So I think my personal opinion, and having talked with a lot of the wizened remote viewers out there, is that this is kind of, you get this information before your ego's gates come down and say, well, when you first try it, your ego is not on guard. It's like, yeah, whatever, I'll sit down and I'll do this. But if you do have a success like that, then all of a sudden you start second guessing yourself. And that's when your imagination kicks in. But I think everybody who's been tested has this ability. And I think that the more often you do it, obviously, the stronger this ability gets. So yeah, I think that everybody can do this. And the great thing about it is that your taxpayer dollars have paid for all this training, and it's freely available online if you want to go get it. I know lots of outstanding remote viewers who've learned it all just by going to reputable sites like the International Remote Viewing Association's website, irva.org. There are lots of practice targets there, and all it takes is a pen and a paper, and you sit down for 20 minutes and write down your impressions. There's more to it, of course, but if you want to do simple stuff, that's really how you start. And you can train yourself to do some really amazing magic with it,
That's amazing. I love that. So when you see those, like the balls of information you were explaining, is it like, does it come to you kind of like in like pictures or symbols, and you have to kind of like break it down into like kind of like a puzzle? And are they always the same?
I guess it's different for every target. And the way Paul Smith, who does training, has described it, it's like it's like remembering a dream that you haven't had yet. It's kind of like fuzzy information that you haven't quite accepted in your mind. And the trick is to just sort of describe those impressions that you're getting rather than naming things. So your left brain ego, left brain mind wants to put labels on everything. And in remote viewing, if you let that happen, then your imagination will start to kick in and say, well, it's red, it's about the size of my hand. It's got to be an apple. Well, it could be, something totally different. But because your ego wants to win and know everything, you can get off track. So the whole key to remote viewing is learning to take those impressions and focus on the descriptives that are in there. So if it was in fact an apple, you might say it's round, it's tasty, it's got a nice fresh smell to it. It weighs a few pounds. I don't know how detailed you necessarily get. It's red. The colors come through pretty well for me. But write down those descriptives, maybe do some sketches, and try your hardest not to name things. And if you could do that, then you're going to be off to a great start with remote viewing.
That's awesome.
So basically, don't attach anything to it. Just let it flow.
Right. So, like I said, left brain wants to be in charge, and right brain has those impressions that are coming in. And I don't know if this all necessarily corresponds to neuroscience, but these are the common terms people use. And I think if I explain in left brain, right brain terms, people can kind of understand. But yeah, those impressions come through, and you try not to steer it. You try not to name things because you just write down those impressions, and that is really, like I said, that's the key to getting that information. And I don't know if I answered your question properly. Sometimes I ramble.
It's okay. Do you ever actually teach people, like, is that something that you do, that you actually teach others to do the remote viewing, or do you just tell others like where they can go and learn it?
Yeah, I've been trained by multiple people. I had the workshop from Joe McMonagle. I went through Paul Smith's basic CRV class, and also one with Angela Thompson Smith. And I do this monthly practice target meetup every month, where members of the Rhine, can log into Zoom. I'll usually have 2 targets picked out, and we'll work them. I don't consider myself to be a teacher, but there are plenty of people who've gone through the Ryan RV group meetings and gone on to do serious remote viewing. And we've done some very interesting targets as part of that group. So like I said, anybody can learn this. All that information that the Army and the CIA helped put together. Well, CIA wasn't really all that involved with it, but you can download the guides, and there are plenty of resources online. Like Reddit has an amazing remote viewing subreddit with I think over 60,000 members right now, where people can trade questions and have people review their sessions. It's really up to you. The main thing is that you have to practice. You have to be willing to practice and learn how your mind interacts with you, talks with you. I always tell people, like, if you keep a dream journal on a regular basis and you write down your dreams and you understand your dream symbols, that can put you ahead in remote viewing, because you're really trying to decipher this information your mind is sending you. And a lot of those things aren't going to be in direct terms. They're going to be symbols and associations and things like that only make sense to you. So you have to know your own mind, really, to be a good remote viewer.
So
do you think that's a connection, though, through the alien, the book that you were reading, and you were talking about, like, having that thing come down? Do you think maybe that's connected with remote viewing?
Yeah. My friend John, who was the judge for me on that particular app fest that I went to, likes to tell people, like, if you're any group of remote viewers, chances are there are experiencers among them. And I sort of feel the same way. A lot of people sort of get drawn to doing aliens, and there's definitely a consciousness aspect to UFO sightings and alien interactions that are key to it, basically. So I think that in the case of that UFO I mentioned, somebody knew I was reading about UFOs, and somebody knew that I was seeing that, and speculating like how that could possibly happen is still something that I wonder about. Yeah, there's definitely a connection. And I think as remote viewers, you're like I said, exercising this muscle that most people aren't used to. And I actually have a theory about this too, where it's like we all have these radios built into our minds. And there's a little band of the radio dial that doesn't normally have anything on it. There's no station there normally. But you do a little bit of remote viewing and you realize, oh, there's something there that I can tune into. And I think when you interact with aliens or UFOs, there's something there that you're not used to seeing or hearing. And then that kind of expands your awareness beyond where it used to be. And you start to pick up those types of things. So there's a lot of talk about the hitchhiker effect when, you've heard about Skinwalker Ranch and some of the people that have gone there. I don't think that things are actually following people home the way a lot of people like to describe it that way. In the same way that as remote viewers, most of us will say that we don't actually go anywhere. If I'm viewing the Eiffel Tower, I don't actually send part of my mind out there. That information is just there. There's really no time or space involved. So for the hitchhiker effect, what I think is happening here is that there's all of a sudden a signal on that radio dial in this person's mind that they aren't used to hearing before. And once you've tuned that radio on, then you start to pick up things that you didn't ordinarily know about. So there might already be a spirit hanging around your house that you just weren't open to, encountering. And then all of a sudden that radio dial is turned on and you're tuned in and you've got that ability to interact with it where you didn't before. Nothing necessarily, went home with you. It's just, you're suddenly open to more things. And so I think that's really what's going on here is that remote viewing helps open your mind to things that have been out there all the time. So for me, I am one who likes to point out things that are there. I think that, you could not do remote viewing and then you wouldn't notice this stuff anymore. But does that necessarily mean that they're not there anymore? No, So I would rather know things that are out there and be aware of my surroundings and maybe interact with them because it's not all bad. I've had some great ET experiences and I want to talk about more of those here tonight too. But it is really just, it's a matter of just it opens you up to things that you didn't ordinarily know about. And that's good and bad,
Yeah. In my mind, when I'm listening to you talk about remote viewing and the experiences that you've been through, it seems to me it's kind of like the cloud, where each person is kind of like a computer drawing information from the cloud. And some people are more adept at it and their throughput is stronger or bigger than others that have not been training in this modality. So I think it takes a lot of practice, like you say, but I think maybe there are people out there that are more intuitive and might have an easier time getting that information.
Yeah, I mean, everything is on a bell curve. I can swim a lap in a pool like Katie Ledecky, but she's going to smoke me when it comes to actually, winning an Olympic race. So it's all a matter of your ability. There's some ability to it, but you can learn to do things if you are motivated enough and dedicated enough. Then certainly you can hone those skills. But yeah, there are some people who naturally are better at it than others. And if you've had any type of psychic ability and you've paid attention to it, then you might be, good candidate for remote viewing. You probably do well with it. What's very interesting, there's also science that seems to suggest that synesthetes are especially good at remote viewing. A lot of the top remote viewers are synesthetes, and that's the idea or the concept where your senses aren't limited to just sight or sound or something. Like my daughter is a synesthete, and she when she hears letters of the alphabet, she's got colors that pop into her mind. And for me, that's a kind of a really interesting way to see the world, and I think she has something special. And a lot of synesthetes are very good at memorization, that ability to look associate colors or sounds or something with where the senses get crossed. That's a very easy way to make sense in a world that I think the rest of us don't really do. So I'm kind of jealous about that, honestly.
Yeah. Well, that's something we got to look
I had a question about, okay, so where does that line define that you're actually remote viewing? Because of course, we all have dreams,
Mhm.
but like for instance, Lee and I recently went on a camping trip where it was a Bigfoot camping trip. And prior to that camping trip, I was having dreams about things happening there that
Mhm.
we actually had an insane experience.
Mhm.
And so where does that happen? Like, when do you know that you're remote viewing and not just having a strange dream?
Well, it's hard to say in dreams because, as I mentioned, the ones that I had noted back in high school, that was basically a script for what was going to happen during that day. Um, so I think that a lot of dreams serve as the sort of the planning phase of what's going to happen with you, and so there was probably some elements of that. Remote viewing again is more like a deliberate sort of sit down and pull this type of information out. So, like I said, it's a way of directing your psychic ability. Let me talk a moment about the mindset that you're supposed to be in remote viewing. The thing that makes remote viewing unique is that it's not like a dream state necessarily, or it's not an out of body experience. It's not you're not going into some kind of trance necessarily, although it does help to quiet your mind. It's a ability to sort of focus some of your consciousness in the room where you're at, where you're got your pen and paper out and you're sketching, you're drawing, while a part of your mind goes out to, well, here I am using those terms where you're traveling, you don't really travel, but a part of your mind is tuned in. Let's do that. It's tuned in to whatever it is you're supposed to be viewing. And so it's a balance of kind of splitting your consciousness between here and there. You can do that in other states. Like Joe McMoneagle was famous for doing what he calls extended remote viewing. And that's where he would lie down on a cot or something in the Army's RV unit and get to the point where he's almost asleep, the hypnagogic state.
Mhm.
And he would get visions there. And there's a couple of audio clips that are out there of some of these sessions he's done. And it sounds like his mouth is full of marbles. He's like, and you can hear snoring sometimes. He's like so totally hard to understand because he's that close to sleep. And sometimes he goes a little too far over the line, but he gets a lot of that insight from that particular state. And there's no reason why you couldn't do that in a dream state or a light sleep state. But again, to be remote viewing, you have to be blind to the target and it has to be deliberate. So often in an ERV session, you've got somebody acting as a monitor who can do that kind of left brain thinking and help keep your viewer from slipping all the way into sleep. So yes, the dream state is highly psychic, and there's no reason why you couldn't use that for remote viewing as long as, like I said, it's blind and it's a deliberate sort of attempt. So yeah.
Mhm.
nice.
I
Wow.
was curious too, like, what do you think remote viewing does? Like, what is how do I say this? Like, what do you think it helps with the most, like in life?
For me, just the idea that that time doesn't really exist the way we experience it,
Mhm.
and that fate isn't necessarily a thing. I'd remote viewed this baseball game and it turned out in my favor. And some people could say, and for good reason, that was a 50-50 chance. It was unlikely. I thought that I would call that it would be below 9 runs, and it turned out to be 8. That was like a little close for comfort for me, especially the
Mhm.
fact that I drew this picture that I hadn't seen for 3 hours later. The Like I said, it tunes up your psychic ability. And after that Joe McMoneagle, I'll go back to the 2000s. I've done a lot of stuff since then, but the 2006 workshop was world changing. For like several weeks after that session, I was highly, highly psychic. And one day I was sitting in my office. I was just fiddling around with the computer. It was Friday afternoon or something. I wasn't really concerned about stuff. My colleague came in and started a conversation with me. And then I turn to him and I'm listening to him, and all of a sudden I'm realizing I know every single word that's about to come out of his mouth.
Oh, wow.
And I did. And we talked for 5 minutes. I knew everything he was going to say. I knew everything I was going to say in return. It was like part of my mind had sort of stepped back a little bit and was watching this play that was unfolding in front of me. And that went on for several minutes. And my mind was totally blown. I thought, wow, that is really wild. I might go out and buy a lottery ticket or something or whatever. Right. So I get in my car. I'm driving home that day and in traffic. And I thought, okay, well, let's just see if I can do what they call remote influencing and, maybe try to alter my world somehow. Right. So I thought, okay, well, I'll do that. I stopped at the traffic light. There was a car that was 3 lanes over and several car lengths ahead of me that was stopped at the traffic light. And I'm back here in my car and I decided, okay, well, let's see. I see a girl there behind the wheel. I started thinking to myself, cute guy on the left, cute guy on the left. And I'm thinking about this and I'm sort of focused on her. And the very next thing, she turns around, looks back across 3 lanes and several cars of traffic and looks directly at me.
Oh,
Wow.
And she had no reason to do that. There were several cars in front of us, in between us, and she looked directly at me like she could hear me. And that
wow.
made me go, whoa, I need to settle
Like,
down
where's
here.
that cute guy? Where's that
Yeah,
cute
she
guy?
looked really disappointed too. That was the crazy thing. So she kept looking.
Not true, not true.
No, yeah, she kept looking. But I thought, okay, did I do that? Was that just a weird coincidence? But I was
You were
feeling
messing with
highly.
her mind.
Maybe I was, and so I've heard some stories about remote influencing, and you got to be very careful about this stuff. I, as an IT guy, I've always been able to access the email that the people that I work with, and I've had a security clearance. I've been trusted with secrets. I have a very strong ethical foundation, and I'm not going to violate people's privacy, even if it doesn't in total exist. I mean, there's probably some things that could be done with it, but you really have to have a very strong ethical sense if you're doing this kind of stuff, because it's not a toy. It's not something that you just because I do believe in karma, and if you are trying tricks on somebody or getting that information, then it will come back to you in one way or the other. And I think we're kind of all connected. Yeah. So you got to be very careful of this stuff. It is not a toy. And as my friend Dad Smith mentioned recently about aliens, be especially careful if you're trying to remote view aliens, because they are highly psychic, and there are plenty of them out there, and you don't know what you're doing, and they do, and that sort of puts you at a disadvantage. So be careful what you ask for when you're dealing with stuff like that. That's all I can say about that.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of aliens, I'm just curious, do you think they're interdimensional?
I do. I've had a lot of experiences with aliens. I talked about the boot camp thing, which I didn't actually see anything, but I have been face to face with aliens before. They can do things that we don't know how to do yet, and that's pass through solid matter. I've seen that happen. I've been abducted from my bedroom back in 2014. And somehow a small gray alien was standing by my bed after having gone through locked doors in my house, past my sleeping dog. The alarm was on in the house. My wife was sleeping right next to me. And yet 5 feet away from me is this short little figure, 3.5 feet tall in the dark, who could read my mind. And you got to wonder how that happens. If they're fully 3-dimensional, can they pass through things like that? Or do they know some tricks that we don't? When I was face to face with this alien, it was flesh and blood, just like me, as far as I was concerned. But they know some interesting tricks that we have yet to learn.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I have a quick question. Lee and I were camping, and I had a very strange experience. We were in the tent, and this very bright light appeared. Now we're up at the base of Mount Adams, and it's pitch dark, and there's no one around us. And this extremely bright light came in as if it was coming from above the tent, and the light filled up the tent. And it just lasted maybe like about 30 seconds or so. And Lee was asleep, and I was like trying to wake him up, and I'm like, hey, wake up, look, there's this crazy light. And it was just like boom, gone. And I was like, whoa, you just missed this light. It was insane. And I'm trying to explain it to him, like, just stay awake with me, so if it comes back. And I knew there was no way I was about to go to sleep, because I wanted to see if it would come back. Well, lo and behold, I thought it came back like 5 minutes later. And so I said, whoa, it's back. And I'm trying to wake him up again. And the first time it came, I had him a time stamp. I said, what time is it? He said 12:15. Then the second time it came back, like I said, I thought it was 5 minutes later, and he says it's 5 a.m. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. How's it 5 a.m.? So have you ever had an experience where you are remote viewing or something regarding the aliens or anything like that, where this long period of time goes by that you don't understand?
That sounds like the common missing time effect that a lot of experiencers have. So there have been times when I've been visited by the aliens that I had put in some kind of trance or hypnosis. I think it's probably more hypnosis. And only later, picked out bits of it. And you mentioned how you'd seen this light and it kept you awake. When I found this small gray in my bedroom in 2014, I had this crazy adventure, which I could go into lots of detail about, but they brought me back, as they always do. And I went back to sleep. I fell back asleep.
Yeah.
And woke up in the morning going, I either had like the most terrifying nightmare that was around, or something really traumatic possibly could have happened. So why did I just fall back asleep? I would have been like wired with the lights on, sipping coffee, gotten my gun out or whatever. But for some reason it did not even concern me. So it makes you wonder.
It's funny that you'd say that. That's
Yeah?
Lee in a nutshell.
Yeah.
I'm telling you.
He did the same thing to me.
Oh yeah. Okay. So yeah. So
Yeah.
So you got to wonder, like, how does that happen? Are you drugged somehow? I think it's more hypnosis. I think the aliens are master hypnotists. And I think that, some people say that that's because they're being deceptive. I think they don't want to break our fragile worldview. And I think the reason that they have these cover stories is that so you can accept it. So they're very telepathic. If you've ever interacted with them, they know what you're thinking. They can send you messages. That night when I found one in my room, I had this vision later, and I've not gone through a regression to find out what happened, but they were doing some kind of medical procedure on me. And I've described this in other interviews. And whatever they were doing started to hurt me. It was like I was in a dentist chair and I was just kind of letting them do the things that they normally do. Like, if you go to the dentist, you're not necessarily paying attention to everything they're doing in your mouth while they're doing it. So I was just kind of in this happy little state, almost like I had laughing gas, that they give you at the dentist. And then whatever they were doing hurt my spine, searing pain. And that pain snapped me out of whatever kind of hypnosis I'd had. And I telepathically told them, you're hurting me, please stop. And they heard me and they stopped and the pain went away. And later that day, the morning after I woke up, I was like, how did I know to do that? How did I know that I could talk to them in my mind and they would hear me? And so that made me think, okay, well, maybe I've had some experiences earlier in my life where, this has been old hat for me, but there was definitely some kind of hypnosis or almost, it was almost, to me, it was almost like if you've ever had any kind of major surgery done and you get general anesthesia, there'll be like a period when you wake up, maybe 2 or 3 minutes, where the lights are on necessarily, but you're not home yet, right? Like the doctor will be trying to tell you what's going on, and you're saying, I don't know, blue, purple, dog, and you think you're making sense, but your mind's not really kicked in yet. And that was that kind of feeling that I had where I was kind of absorbing some of the things that were happening to me, but I wasn't fully there. So I forget where this all sort of began, but there's definitely an option of an aspect of hypnosis there. And like I said, they can read your mind. I think they find things that comfort you that you're thinking of. Like you might say to yourself, well, that's just an owl. Maybe your dreaming self starts to kick in and you pretend that's an owl. They might encourage that. They might say, okay, all right, yeah, it's an owl. I'm an owl. I'm a talking owl. This is all a dream. You can go back to sleep. I think they do that so that they don't crush us and cause a mental breakdown, honestly. So is it deception? Are aliens playing with our minds? Yes, but I think they probably have good reason to. Yeah. So
it's very much like we're really big into Bigfooting as well. And it's like the infrasound that people say that Bigfoot or Sasquatch can do and manipulate your mind and your thoughts and how you feel and if you want to sleep or whatever it is that they do to us. And that's what this reminds me of.
I have a long-standing theory that Bigfoot is an alien, or at least travels with aliens. I think there's a huge there's a connection. I think they might be considered their body or their enforcers or whatever. I think they might go into places and scare people away if there's other things going on there. So I think wherever there's a Bigfoot, there's probably a UFO or alien nearby, and that's why we don't see them everywhere. It's because they go away whenever that mission is done. Yeah.
I love that you're saying this because I say this all the time, and I've been saying this for years. And people always doubt me when I say that. And they're like, no, there's no way. It's not connected.
Yeah,
but the strangest thing is you see these orbs and they're always like 3 orbs above. And then somehow or another, there's always some kind of like alien or UFO experience around the same time.
Yes.
And it just doesn't make any sense that they're not somehow connected.
Right. You will often find a report of UFOs where Bigfoot has been seen.
Yes.
And that whole idea of things getting suddenly quiet also happens around UFOs, when somebody is around a craft. One of my theories is that there's that force field, I guess, that surrounds a UFO. And I think that I don't know exactly how it works. I think that how they do their interdimensional stuff is basically they have a way of shifting the frequency of the atoms that they have involved or the walls or whatever to a slightly different frequency with this field. And if you know anything about atoms, they're 99.999% empty space, right? It's just the molecular bonds, the atomic bonds that push back on them. So there's nothing that says that, you couldn't just walk through a wall like that if your atoms that are, and this is, I'm not a physicist, but this is kind of my hunch based on the things I've seen. I think that that field just lets them unlock those atoms, shift through other things, and then lock them back up again. So I think that the silence might be part of that the atoms around the craft or around the field aren't vibrating the way they used to. And so the sound doesn't pass through because all sound is vibrating molecules, right? So, but
my understanding, I would feel like then the remote viewing would just make you feel more connected. Like you have more of an understanding.
Yes. Like I said, it's exercising your psychic muscles, and you could do a session on what happened to you there and maybe pull out some good information. It might be in some cases better than even hypnotic regression because you are sort of a third party when you're doing a remote viewing session. Well, not necessarily. There are lots of like if you do enough remote viewing, you do what they call bilocation. And this is a really cool aspect. If you're not familiar with bilocation, sitting down with a pen and paper in a room, you're working on a target. All of a sudden, the room goes away for you, and you're actually there. And it's like stepping into a lucid dream, but you're fully conscious, and you forget that you're actually in the room taking notes. So there are lots of. It's not happened to me yet, but there are lots of documented cases where these remote viewers have bilocated and gone to this place. Like, so if they're looking at the Battle of Little Bighorn, for instance, all of a sudden bullets are flying and people are fighting all around them, and they're actually experience that as it happened. so for an intelligence gathering aspect of remote viewing, by location, while it's really neat, isn't very helpful because the whole time you're there, you're not taking notes and doing your sketches and gathering intel. You're not interacting with the monitor. So generally, when the Army did it, they frowned on that whole by location thing. They would try to bring you back and have you come back to the room. But to me, that's just is another fascinating aspect of reality and how all that works. So yeah, I mean, you could actually be doing a remote viewing session on an alien abduction and feel what it's like to be abducted. You can put yourself in the shoes of that person as it's happening and experience it the same way without any downsides. Although, as I said, the aliens are highly psychic. They would probably notice you.
Yeah.
Wow.
And you know, I don't know
So
what
you're
tricks they pull, but yeah, you got to be careful.
Yeah. So when you're doing your remote viewing, you're picking up also on the feelings of possibly the subject
Yes.
remote viewing.
I have friends who operationally remote
Mhm.
view, and they do things like missing persons cases. And God bless them for doing that. Some of the stuff that they are exposed to is very traumatic. Like my friend told me, he knows what it's like to get stabbed 50 times.
Oh, that's
because
awful.
he feels it. Yeah. So they call it remote viewing. It's not just visual stuff. You get everything. You get the sights, the smells, the sounds, the textures, the emotional feelings of the people at the scene. You can have a visceral reaction to the scene itself, the session. And those are very important clues when you're doing a session about, really what's going on there. But it is
Mhm.
it can be fully engulfing and it can be traumatic,
Yeah.
The Army team who did it had lots of medical oversight, right? They had a IRB board there that would sign off on the protocols, and they had therapists that they could go talk to. A lot of the like freelance remote viewers don't have those resources, and honestly, I'm very concerned about that because
Yeah.
it's not just reading about a murder in the paper. It could honestly be up to experiencing it yourself, and
Wow.
and without, some therapy, you could kind of go off the deep end. I think, unfortunately, it is, like I said, it's not a toy.
No, it doesn't sound like it at all. Not at
Yeah.
all.
I'm literally blown away by this because I had an experience, this was probably about 7 or 8 years ago, where I was supposed to be going and someone called me in to go help a family with a paranormal investigation at their home.
Hmm.
And I hadn't met the family yet. And so the friend that was helping them called me the night before and said, "Hey, this family really needs your help. Can you come in and help?" And I said, "Yeah, of course." So that night I went to bed and I woke up with this massive pain all over on one side of my face.
Hmm.
It felt like I had been like I fell down onto a concrete floor or something.
Hmm.
And it was just the weirdest, most painful feeling. And it was just giving me the worst headache. And I ended up having to call them and cancel. And I said, "I don't know what's wrong with me. I feel like I've been hit by a truck or I fell down on the ground and hit my face on the concrete." And
Uh-huh.
he said, "I'm sorry, what did you say?" And I could hear the woman in the background and I heard her say, "What did she just say?"
Oh,
And
wow.
he repeated what I said and they both literally stopped and went silent. And I said, "What's going on? Why are you guys acting so weird?" And they said, "The wife fell in the bathroom last night and fainted and hit the side of her face. And
Wow.
she's in massive pain."
Wow.
And I just couldn't believe it. And I thought that was the second time that I'd ever had a feeling of someone else of what they'd gone through. So would you call that remote viewing?
Well, again, if it's intentional and blind, perhaps, but you definitely connected. And if that was in a remote viewing session, that would obviously be a really strong clue that that you were tuned in, as we call it. You were on the signal line there. So
Mhm.
that I think you would probably do really well with a little bit of remote viewing practice and stuff, because that's the kind of thing that can happen in a remote viewing session. You can feel those things that are happening. And one of the nice aspects of having a monitor while you're doing a session is that if you are like remote viewing something that's really warm, like the desert or a volcano or something, you might find yourself as you're taking notes that you're going like this, or oh wow, it's just, and you might not even notice it. These are like subconscious little things that your body does. But as a monitor, if you see that, you have to say, what are you doing with your hand there? You know, why are you wiping your brow? And oh, I didn't even notice I was doing that.
Yeah.
Then you say, write it down, you know, put that on your page, because you're having these sometimes these subconscious aspects pulling through. Dr. Edward May has been doing remote viewing research forever. He used to be part of the SRI program back in the 80s, has continued doing that for several decades. But he's had experiences, and other psychic researchers have done this too, where the tests show that a human body is able to predict when trauma is about to take place. And in the case of a lot of the tests, it would be like a really loud sound that gets played in your earphones, and or like a really scary photo appears on a video screen in a series of other, you know, generally benign photographs, and you measure the stress on the body with an EEG type of outfit, and it will show that you know, your body will spike right before something like that traumatic happens, before it happens, right? Before you see it. And sometimes, again, before a random generator has picked that particular picture. Your body knows these things, and that's built in, and it can be measured, has been measured in the lab. So those types of feelings come through very strongly. Your autonomous nervous system, like your primitive, whatever it is, your primitive aspect of humans, like back when we were living in caves or whatever, I guess some of that is still around and in us. Your body knows. And in the case of what you just mentioned, you definitely tuned in to that woman's trauma. So that was very impressive. I bet you're a very good medium.
Well, I was obviously born with the ability. My dad actually had premonition dreams, and he was very much a sensitive medium as well. And so my whole life, I grew up with my dad having these premonition dreams of things that would happen, major things like earthquakes and tsunamis. And he would tell you literally the second it happened, where it's going to happen. I mean, every single detail he could possibly tell you, and it would happen like the next day.
Wow.
So yeah, so I think that's something that I would very much like to learn, is more about, you know, remote viewing for sure, because I feel like I'm already somewhat there.
Sure. Yeah. I think you've got obviously some natural ability. What a gift that is that your dad was sharing these dreams with you, because I have a working theory. And again, it's just my opinion that like as kids, we have this ability, especially as infants, where we're not able to, you know, effectively communicate with adults, our parents or whatever. And I think that over time, like I said, that if the station is not playing on that radio, that part of your radio dial, you start to ignore it and tune it out, and then you forget it's there. And I think that you, by just having your dad share that kind of stuff, maybe kept some of that little station area alive.
Absolutely.
You know, and started paying attention to it. So kids, when they remote view, they're often really good remote viewers because they don't have any stigma with it. They are a little bit closer to still having their radio tuned in, so to speak. And they often do very well. So I think there's something to that theory. I don't know if any kids have been wide scale, you know, tested that way, but I think it would be a very interesting experiment. But a lot of people don't have that. A lot of people don't have that basis of it's okay to share this kind of stuff. And as a result, I think they kind of turn away and forget about it. And then it's really hard to get it back. Yeah. So good for you.
Yeah. My son actually is 16, and he has the exact same ability that my dad and myself have, and he has autism. And I wonder sometimes if that affects him even more.
Could
because
be
of the way he thinks.
I think neurodivergent people might have an ability to do this. Yes. It might be worth testing. Certainly like synesthetes, as I mentioned, seem to have a better ability to do it. So yeah, that would be worth testing.
I'm wondering, since you were talking about looking for missing children and stuff like that, have you ever worked with the police department on any cases at all?
No, I could have continued my training into the intermediate and advanced sessions, knowing that that was there. But I am such an empath, personally,
Mm.
and after hearing some of the stories, I feel like the poor contractors who work for companies like Facebook and have to sort through this crazy stuff out there that people are posting, a lot of really dark stuff.
Yeah.
Um, that I think I would absolutely need some kind of therapist to talk to if I did stuff like that. I could not
Yeah.
handle it. I volunteered for my kids' school when they were in school. Um, I couldn't handle it, especially because, like I said, you make such a strong connection remote viewing with that. Now, there are some techniques you can use to sort of distance yourself and put up a protective emotional barrier. And again, it's all just suggestion to yourself that
Mhm.
I'm only gonna witness this. I'm not going to feel it. I'm not going to experience it. But still,
Mhm.
it takes a special person to do that. And I know many remote viewers who do that for police departments, find missing people, and that's not work that I could handle myself. It's just it would be too intense.
That
Yeah.
would be a hard one for me.
Yeah. I
As
would
much as I
think.
would love to help, that would be hard.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
the thing. I'm a Boy Scout at heart. I want to help people out, but
Mhm.
that takes special training, and like I said, it takes a very certain kind of person who's willing to press on to do that kind of stuff. Because like the second I think that I would get any kind of trauma like that, especially involving children, um, I would have to end the
Yeah.
session. Like I can't handle this anymore. Yeah, that's just me
Can't
though.
even watch the news. Don't get me started.
Yeah, but like I said, God bless the people that can do that because they are often
Exactly.
the only heroes
Mhm.
in that. Like if somebody's been abducted, captured by some weirdo, that might be the only way that they can be found or helped. And so
Yeah,
there have been some really amazing victories in that regard. But like I said, it takes a special person to do that, and I'm not that person.
absolutely. I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
do you think while doing the remote viewing, have you ever been approached by aliens, or do you think aliens have intervened in any way
I'm glad
with?
you asked that, Lee. Every time I've gone to remote viewing trainings, generally it's like a week or so, with Paul Smith, with Angela Thompson Smith, I have felt things around me during that time, and I think the aliens have been keeping close tabs on the training that I do. The I've had training through what I used to call alien dreams. Like I said, from the 2006 incident, later, a few years later, I would wake up with these dreams that I had, where I'd interacted with aliens, but I'm fairly certain I didn't go anywhere. So this was all like
Mhm.
meeting in a dream space somewhere, and they were teaching me things.
Yeah.
I remember being in a room and being shown like an object, a ball across this room, and manipulating it with my mind. I was able to make it move with my mind.
Yeah.
And
I've
yeah, you said the same thing, right? So
yeah.
I remember turning to the person or being next to me and saying, "Do you mean I can do this in real life?" And they nodded their head. They said yes. And
Mhm.
so I thought, oh, that's really cool. And then I woke up, and whatever they taught me just like went right out of my head. I wasn't able to move anything with my mind, and so
Yeah.
um, I was in
Mhm.
training for remote viewing. This is probably 2016, 2017. Angela Thompson Smith did one of the master class remote viewing sessions, and she is an experiencer. She's written a fat book on all the interactions she's had with aliens and ETs. So she's a very interesting person. But we let's see. There were aliens around when I was doing this training. And there was one morning during the session where we sort of took a day off and we were going to go sightseeing. So that morning, it's a Thursday morning, I'm in this kitchen of this house that we were all hanging out in, and not quite awake yet. Right. So I'm at the sink. I turn around and I knock a glass off the counter as I'm turning around. And I'm in the middle of a conversation with one of my classmates who was sitting at the table there. And I turned around and I said, "Did you just see what happened?" And she said, "What?" I said, I just knocked this glass onto the floor, and I turned around, and the glass is sitting on the floor, right side up, like somebody had placed it there.
Huh.
And neither one of us heard a crash or it hit the floor. We didn't hear anything. And only when I turned around did I see this glass standing straight up
Wow.
on the floor, like I had sat it there. And I asked her, like, what just happened there? And she was reading the newspaper. She didn't really know what was going on. But I couldn't figure that out. How did I knock this glass off a 3-foot tall counter onto a tile floor without it making a sound, without it shattering, and not even know about it? And I was
Wow.
totally flummoxed by that. So later on, I'm going like, maybe that
Did I do that?
levitation training I was doing actually came into effect, you know? So yeah,
Yeah.
aliens were around. I think they have been very encouraged by the training I'm getting. I think they want me to learn how to do this. Later that week, I would go to bed at night, and I had this knowing that if I would just walk outside in the backyard that night, I could have a face-to-face interaction with them, that they were willing to
Wow.
meet me face-to-face. And I was so chicken that I didn't do it. And since then, I was kind of kicking myself. It was like I just knew that was going to happen, and they were urging me to do this. But
My
they
gosh.
have been investing in my training in that regard. And I think the reason why is that they are trying to turn these lights on, trying to light up these radio dials that we all have, because
Mhm.
they're showing us that there's more to reality than we are familiar with. And I think some of these UFO sightings that we have, like with the Navy's Tic Tac UFO that happened in 2004, you know, in the Pacific, that shows us very clearly that our understanding of physics isn't quite complete, and that there are cool things that we could be doing that we're not. And I firmly believe that there's nothing that the aliens can do that we can't learn how to do. And I think they're here to show us that we're doing things the hard way, that
Yeah.
we can use our minds to know things. We can use our minds to move things.
Mhm.
And we don't have to be burning fossil fuels to get around too. There are ways that we can jump through time and space the way there's nothing. I think they're here to tell us that there's nothing that they can do that we can't, and to sort of encourage us to keep poking. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
We only have one thing to say about that. You're a wizard, Harry.
Oh, you know, I'm just an average remote viewer, but I've been around this stuff for a while, and anybody can be a wizard. Anybody can learn this stuff. And the more you do, the stronger those psychic muscles will get. And who knows what kind of stuff you can wind up doing, you know. It is like the closest thing I know of doing real magic. Remote
Yeah.
viewing is like real magic, and
Do
mind
you,
blowing when you do it.
I was just curious, do you ever notice or feel like people who have like a higher vibration that we tend to like, we're drawn to each other, but I've also heard that people who have higher vibrations are ones that have more of like the sensitive side or empath side, that we connect on a different level. Do you think that that somehow connects with what you do?
Yes, I do. I think that people who have that mindset, and like I said, maybe their radio dials are tuned in, so maybe you sort of pick up signals from other people that you wouldn't ordinarily do. So yeah, we do have a way of finding ourselves. And when I tell people about my alien experiences, you know, people in my everyday life, maybe somebody at work, you know, usually you can kind of get an idea if somebody's going to be open to this stuff. Almost always they will come back and say, well, you know, there was that one time several years ago where I had this thing happen to me and I didn't really know what to do with it, you know. And then I'll say, well, yeah, you know, you've had that experience too. People start talking about things when you're willing to talk about it. And that's one of the reasons why I'm here. You know, I'm here to say that remote viewing is real, that aliens are real, and you can do things with your mind. We are all far more powerful than we have been led to believe. And if you practice that and you rehearse that, you can do some amazing things with it. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
I mean, don't we only use like 10% of our brain on like an average?
Yes, that's what they
So,
say. Yep. And
yeah.
like I said, I think one of the aliens' missions here is to kind of wake us up to this fact and to help us out. And they've been extraordinarily patient with me. Actually wound up did get a face-to-face meeting with them, which is an interesting story that I can talk about. That happened maybe 2 years ago. My wife organizes these conferences for her job, and she travels around the state to do it. And so there was one morning that she was going to be heading out to North Carolina's coast, and I was working remotely at the time. So I said, "Why don't I just go with you? It's a nice day." It was in the early winter, I believe, or late fall. So packed up my laptop, and we were getting ready to hit the road. And I'm standing in the kitchen while she's getting ready to head out the door. And I turn on the light switch in our kitchen, and very curiously, like we have like 5 can lights above the counter, like only 2 of them came on. And I turned the switch off again. I turned it back on. Only 2 of them came on again. I'm like, I know a lot about electronics. All right, I'm an amateur radio operator. I've worked with electronics in the Navy, took electronics courses. I've done a lot of electrical wiring. I know what can and can't happen with electricity, and I could not explain what was going on there. So I flipped the switch on and off again. Only certain lights are coming on. Sometimes I think the lights change, which lights come on, which really doesn't make sense. But we're late at this point, and we're heading out the door. And so I finally leave the light switch, and I'm just like praying that the house is not going to burn down or something while we're gone, right? So we make a trip to the coast. She goes into this hotel, and she's talking with the hotel manager about the conference she's doing. I'm sitting on the back porch with my laptop. Beautiful day, sunny, lots of people around on this veranda on the back of the hotel. I'm overlooking the Taylor Creek there, body of water near the Outer Banks. Suddenly I get the feeling that I need to look up, and I look up from my laptop, and right in front of me is apparently this older woman being assisted by one of the hotel staff. She's walking very carefully down this ramp in front of me. She's dressed in a 1980s era, like polyester jumpsuit kind of thing that you would, like your grandmother used to wear 40 years ago or something. It's bright pink, completely out of fashion, right? So it's very unusual. She's got these really large black sunglasses that cover most of her face down over her cheekbones. And she's wearing a bicycle helmet, even though, she doesn't have a scooter or a stroller or anything like that. And I'm looking at her as she's being escorted down there and thinking, that's really unusual that this person is dressed this way and acting this way. And then later on, I thought, okay, those 2 events are connected. By the way, got home, flipped the light switch on and off again. Lights were perfectly fine. That's the only time since I've been living in this house that those lights have acted that way before or since. And I flipped that switch 100 times when I got back home, could not reproduce it. As an experiencer, you start to come to realize that electrical things don't act the way they should around you, right? And often when you have that experience, when your cell phone battery just dies suddenly, and that actually happened to me again last month, or batteries around you just empty out. Maybe you could be around ghosts, you could be around aliens. Something will drain those. The electricity just doesn't work the same way. So I think that was designed to get my attention that morning. Mm-hmm. And then I actually saw an alien walk by me in broad daylight, disguised as a human, the way some people have talked. So yes, that happens. And later on, I realized just what a gift that was.
Wow.
That she offered to appear before me, and I could see face to face what she looked like. So they are among us, definitely.
Was that something that you asked for ahead of time?
Well, like I said, when I was sort of invited to do that during my training that night, I chickened out. And so, I kind of decided that I still wanted to do that. So, I think at some point I asked for that. And the fact that they obliged is mind-blowing to me. Now, it was a human-looking person who was helping her, somebody in the hotel staff, a big old boy looking kind of guy. good old boy. And it made me wonder, like, how did they communicate? Did he hear stuff from her? I don't think she actually talked. I think she might have maybe telepathically talked to him. And I've had that happen before, where it sounds like it's actually a spoken word, but it's only in your mind. So, I mean, that to me was the more fascinating thing. Like, what did he think he was doing? Did he notice that there was anything unusual with her the way I did? But it was a gift, a total gift, to actually see one of these beings face to face. And there's a couple of very authentic YouTube videos out there of people who have seen the same things. And yeah, I mean, you got to, and I think, to go back to your point, Jax, there's something in your head that convinces you to look, that calls you to focus your attention on it. And only certain people will see that. Only certain people see UFOs for some crazy reason. But that their radio is working, right? That they're picking up that signal that other people don't know to look for. And so there's a lot of that. To answer your question, there's a lot of mind playing going on here. I'm not sure it's aliens or whatever, but yeah, it is definitely there's your consciousness plays such a huge role in the things you see and the things that you're doing, that little urging to look at the right spot. Yeah.
I get like a weird vibration in my body. I get it in my head. My ears will do that weird, almost like static.
Do you hear ringing?
Yes. Like ringing, and I'll get the static, and I'll get that weird vibration going. And then it just starts to, like, it almost feels like a vice sometimes. But I will get it like just whoa, like a weird feeling. And it doesn't matter if it's like, well, I mean, obviously I don't know exactly what it is. I don't know if it's alien, spirit, or Bigfoot, or whatever it is I'm around, or maybe, to me, they're all just intertwined. Okay.
Yeah.
So
there's so much overlap.
Yeah. So that's what I was wondering about, like that strange infrasound and the vibrations and everything that's going on, how it affects us, because I definitely get that. I get those feelings when I'm more connected to spirit, or the alien situation, or Bigfoot situation. And we were just in, like I said, camping about 2 months ago now, I guess. And I was feeling that the whole time I was there. So it was a very interesting. Yeah, we had a crazy experience that we'll have to tell you about sometime. But it's a weird one. But but I was wondering, like that that high frequency and all that. Is that what does that? Because I always wonder, like, what makes me feel that?
Well, I think that a lot of it goes back to, like, that radio part that I mentioned, that you were able to pick that up where other people don't, and maybe that was manifesting as physical symptoms for you. It could be that let's see, you're an experiencer too, aren't you? Well, let's see, if you had like 5 hours disappear on a camping trip, I can say you're pretty much an experiencer. That sounds to me like something happened there, which you might want to consider doing a little bit of regression hypnosis to see what happened. But it could be that that you have an implant or something that might be triggered. I have found that whenever I get visited by the aliens, and once every couple of years, I think sort of it seems to happen, they will sort of condition me that way to leave little hints here and there that they might be around. I'll get a feeling like that, like a presence, often on my back porch in that particular area, that there's something there I can't see. And I don't think it's a ghost. I haven't been around ghosts, but there'll be that, or I'll have a sudden urge to, go to bed early for some reason. Or I'll see a light in the sky, earlier that day, a UFO will appear. Like usually it's one of those orange plasma fireballs that I'll see. They're very common in this area for some reason. But they usually leave hints when they're around. And it could be that was something that was going on for you. Sometimes my ear will start ringing for no apparent reason. And I've gone to the doctor and they find absolutely nothing wrong with it. There's, I think those are physiological clues that there's obviously, presence around that that
Mhm.
you don't normally see. So yeah, I think your radio is very well tuned in there.
Yeah, well, I started seeing spirit like as if they're people when I was about 4 years old.
Mhm.
And I've always seen them and they look like regular humans. They don't have like a ghostly, like
Yes.
walking by and I can see through you kind of thing. I
Yes.
actually see them like they're real humans,
Mhm.
even though I know they're gone,
Mhm.
and so I don't know a lot of people who see them that way, but that started for me very, very early. So, and my father started taking me out looking for Bigfoot at the age of 4, and he was very much into the paranormal and UFOs and
Yeah.
aliens. And so I grew up like this.
Yeah, you
So
were
it
raised
was,
right, as we say here in the South.
yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I say. Growing
Yeah.
up paranormal, yes.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I've only seen a ghost one time, and it seemed like a fully formed human. But there's like we all have been saying, there's a lot of overlap between that, and my ghost chasing friends or people who are especially sensitive to ghosts will say that ghosts aren't used to being noticed, and if somebody's around who has that ability, the ghost will often be attracted to that person, and so you sort of draw them in because. You know, I think a lot of ghosts are just used to being ignored and confused. I think a lot of them are reliving this nightmare or dream or something and unaware of what happened. I think most of those people who passed on, who seem to be hanging around, don't know they're dead. You know,
I guess maybe
and
confusion.
yeah, the state of confusion. And so
Yeah.
I wonder if especially psychic people attract aliens the same way that they might attract, you know, departed spirits, that
Mhm.
they see that they're getting noticed by this person, and so they're interested in interacting more. And you know, going back to your multidimensional question, maybe that's part of the reason why, you know, they could show up. Maybe that type of ability really does cross into other dimensions, you know, and you're
Mhm.
making a connection the same way you do with departed people, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all
I'm wondering. Yeah, I'm wondering, like, when you started to learn how to do remote viewing, did it happen right away for you in the first time that you tried it, or were there many fails until you got positive hit?
It was a 2-day workshop, and there were several of them that went right by me without me really connecting on it. But you know, all it takes is that very first one that blows your mind, and you can't deny to yourself that I had
Mhm.
no idea, no earthly idea what this was, you know. And I drew this picture, and it matches the envelope, and that changes everything, you know. But
Mhm.
often it will, like I said, change things for the worse, because then those shields go up in your mind, and you're not you're trying to second guess yourself all the time, you know. So it's a fine balance of that beginner's luck versus you know, not being wrapped up in the outcome. And the really good remote viewers are in that second phase where they're like, I'm just going to do the best I can. You know,
Mhm.
it's not life or death. If it comes to me, it comes to me. I'm not going to try to steer it. I'm not going to try to be right, and just let that information flow. And when you get to that point, then you can really start rolling with remote viewing.
Mhm.
Wow, so that's just for everybody out there. That's amazing. 2-day workshop, and then you got into it and you had a positive hit. I mean,
Right. Yeah.
that's
I mean,
incredible.
yeah, you can do all kinds of training. You could spend several $1,000s on it. But if you go to IRVA's website, the International Remote Viewing Association, IRVA.org, there's a section on there with some practice targets, and there's a nice page that Paul Smith has written that just tells you how to do a very basic remote viewing session. Here's one thing that everybody can try if you're interested in something super simple but lots of fun. It's called an outbounder remote viewing session. Are you familiar with this at all?
No.
Mhm.
This is where you find a friend who is going to go to a certain place at a certain time, not tell you about it, hang around there for like 15 minutes, and you as a remote viewer will sit back at home or whatever and try to pick up where they're at, right? Draw some sketches and impressions and everything you get. then that person comes back and tells you where they were, or you go out to that site itself and see it for yourself. But that's called an outbounder remote viewing session. And
that's cool.
yeah, and anybody can do it. So the theory is that you are using that person as a beacon wherever you're at. And as the beacon person, when you're at the site, you're supposed to interact with the site, look around, take in all the impressions that you can get. If you walk into a diner, for instance, you're supposed to order a meal and eat the meal, do whatever that's, is specific to that site. And that often will have very strong results from the people who try it, especially the people who are new to remote viewing, because it's sort of like a exciting operational kind of thing. You're not just trying to view what's in the next room. You're looking at something almost through somebody else's eyes. So anybody can do that. Find a friend, send them out somewhere. They don't even have to be in the same city. Just say, go find a place, and at 3:00 next Saturday, be there, interact with whatever site you're at, and I will try to tell you where you're at. And then, take notes, do your sketches, and compare afterwards and see how you do. Chances are
that's really cool.
Yeah. And like, that's really what it's all about. You can go through the protocols and everything, but like I said, as long as you're blind to the target and it's intentional, and there might be a few other small rules about remote viewing, then it's remote viewing. So as long as you're working in that framework, do it. You could also, have a dream about it. You could use your medium skills. You could do dowsing, whatever tools are in your toolbox to ascertain information. Even tarot cards might work. It's all they're all tools to pull this information out of your subconscious. That's really all it is, because we are all collectively connected in the consciousness level, and that's really how it all works. The world is just the universe is ideas clothed in atoms. That's really all it is, right? And we have access to everything, as long as we are willing to look for it. And remote viewing helps you do that.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of that, I hear a lot of people say that as humans, we can literally just call the aliens and say, come, like, I want to see you come, or I want to see a UFO, come here. And that it will actually show up. And I've actually gone out and tried to do that, but I don't see anything. But I do see spirit, and I see, Bigfoot, I see other things. Is there a way to maybe like connect more to have them come, or do you feel like we can actually do that?
We can. And as I go back, I sort of echo Daz's caution for people doing this. It is a big universe out there, and there are lots of beings. I think it's teeming with life. And science has proven that for every star that's in the sky, even the stuff we can't see, there's at least one planet that goes with it. So just imagine just how vast the universe is. Remote viewing and psychic abilities aren't limited by time and space. So be careful what you're trying to connect to. My interactions with aliens, ETs, non-human intelligence, as I'd like to say, has been very beneficial to me. I think they've been invested in my growth and want me to develop my skills. But I would say be careful about who you're connecting to, who you're calling down, because I don't think the intentions of everybody out there are necessarily benign. And I know of a couple of instances that seem to back that up. So it's all about intention, just like everything else. If you are setting intention to have a benevolent UFO or alien or whatever show up, then that's probably what you'll get. So go into it with an open heart.
That's
if that's
scary.
something. It can be scary. And like I said, they are all, well, most of them are at least highly psychic. So, and some of them want us to develop those skills. And I think some of them probably would prefer we don't. But go into it with an open heart if that's something that you want to do, and send the love out there to the universe. And I think that, what you get will reflect that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good to know. Good information.
Mm-hmm.
I know I've also heard that a lot of people in the past have said they have had, an abduction of information. They'll give them information that they do not like, how much technology that we actually use. Have you ever heard that before?
I have read some cases like that where they'll talk about specific technology, like nuclear weapons seem to be something that they well, basically just like heating the earth in any way, which of course nuclear weapons do very well. I think, you know, one thing that I had a very interesting insight last year where I was I've always been worried about climate, right? And I think I just saw that there was a place in Canada, Fort McPherson in the Arctic Circle, wound up being hotter than Fort Myers, Florida this week.
Wow.
95
Wow.
degrees Fahrenheit was what, 35 degrees Celsius.
Wow.
That's a little concerning, right? That's not something you
Yeah.
normally want to see. And so I'm concerned about the climate, but I had an insight pop into my head one day that said, if you're worried about the planet, don't, and it'll be fine. And again, that was really counterintuitive to me. It's like, how can you turn your attention away from the planet and not be concerned about it? But you get what you focus on. And if
True.
I'm worried about the climate and I'm worried about the situation there, that's only going to bring more of that into my experience and my reality. So the other insight, of course, the aliens, they're concerned about our pollution in various ways, right? Because I think in general, we don't treat our planet as well as we should. But the other insight I got, which I think was inspired by my ET contacts, is that it's not just the physical pollution that we are doing to the planet. It's the emotional pollution.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And by that, it's the fear that we are all feeling, you know, fearing each other, not being connected to the planet as the source of our sustenance, and not feeling the love. That, I think, is just as damaging in their eyes as it is the you know, the toxic waste and the nuclear weapons waste and all the other stuff that we're doing. And I think that if we change that, our emotional, you get rid of the fear, we get to a more love-based sort of thing. Honestly, everything will turn itself around. The earth will respond to that. And we'll all be happier, certainly, because that's really what's dragging us down. So that was an insight, I think, that, like I said, was ET inspired, and something I hadn't thought about before.
Yeah, that feels really true. It feels deep.
Emotional. It's emotional. And that, I think, is I think that's one of the keys. We need to start loving each other and loving our planet. And if we can all do that, then those problems will solve themselves.
Absolutely. I
or
love
we'll figure
that.
out ways to solve it. Yeah.
Yeah. Now we need to make a slogan and a t-shirt and we're good to go.
That's right. All
Darn
hands,
retrograde.
kumbaya, whatever it takes, you know.
I'm in.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree on all of that. We need to love our planet and stop abusing it.
Yep.
I'd like to invite people to post their questions in capital letters, please, so that I can get those up on the screen. Here for Mark.
Do you have any like events coming up or anything that you'll be speaking at, or where do you normally talk about this stuff?
Yeah, I would love to talk more about it. Don't really get out as much as I should or would like to when that, but I went to a UFO conference the other day, only as a spectator, but enjoyed sort of that sort of thing. Nothing really coming up, I guess. But if you want to join in with the Rhine remote viewing group that I help facilitate every month, you can go to rhine.org and you can find out more information there. We meet on the third Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern time. On the
How do you spell that?
Rhine.org, RHINE.org.
We get that in there.
And these, I usually pick 2 targets every month for the folks to do, and they're generally easy. I won't send you aliens or murders or any kind of crazy stuff like that. It's all really very basic kind of stuff, because you know, people aren't going to be ready for that. Safe targets, and then we'll spend about 15 minutes, 20 minutes doing that, and then we'll talk about it. I'll give you the feedback, and then people can compare. But there was a few years ago when we did a session, and I tasked this volcano picture to the group, and this is normally about 5 or 6 people that show up for the meetings. It was the Cumbre Vieja volcano in the Canary Islands. And if you know anything about that, allegedly, some volcanologists and geologists will say that the one side of the volcano is very unstable. And if that volcano ever actually erupts the way it could, a fairly decent sized blast, that side of the volcano slides off into the sea and creates a tsunami that travels across the Atlantic Ocean and could devastate the east coast of North America. So that's a little touchy. And back when it was doing all these micro earthquakes, like 1,000 like earthquake swarms, it was starting to get a little bit more active. I just tasked a picture of a sunny, serene volcano and wanted to see if the group picked anything up from that picture. And to my surprise and shock, several of them showed the earth cracking and picture of a wave and everything like that. And like I was freaking out a little bit. I was like, okay, this was just a nice serene picture of a dormant volcano that I sent you, and you're seeing these cracked, ground images and everything.
Wow.
Well, it turns out a few weeks later, it did have an eruption with lava getting spewed. Fortunately, it didn't get any more serious than that. But I don't think anybody had ever really said that it was going to erupt the way it did. So that was something that we kind of predicted before it happened. And I was impressed by that.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And these were all beginners. None of them had really had any formal remote viewing training. So you can do stuff like that.
Angels, our life has a question. Have you ever worked as a remote viewer or with your psychic abilities with any corporations besides the government?
No, I haven't. That would be something that I would be interested in doing. I know of some of my friends who have been working on retainer for companies. Like maybe the CEO will very quietly hire somebody, give them a retainer to answer business questions on a regular basis. And you can use tools like ARV to do that, or maybe task a remote viewer with, can you describe like a revolutionary product that my company could sell? And they could do that. They could come up with plans. Like if you're in the air conditioning business, you might say, design me a more efficient air conditioner or something. And they can come up with plans like that. Like I said earlier, they might not understand it as a viewer if you're not working in that field, but you can sort of pick up some basic concepts for things like that. So I know people that are doing that, and nobody's ever actually approached me. And the other thing about it is that very rarely would anybody ever talk about this, right? Because in the boardrooms, this kind of stuff isn't necessarily kosher. The investors would have some questions if they found out the CEO was, spending money on some psychic, and it would be very bad PR for a lot of people. So, I know people that are doing this, working for these companies, but it's all very hush hush. They sign NDAs. They're quiet about it. And so for all the people who say, well, if you're psychic, how come you're not playing the lottery, winning the lottery? Psychics know better than to talk about stuff like that.
Don't we all wish it worked that way?
Well, I mean, it actually, yeah, I know people who do this and are very successful at it, but they keep their mouths shut because we're all supposed to pretend that there's such thing as chance. Yeah. So we don't blab about stuff like this. So yeah.
All right. Jennifer's got a question here. What did you learn from your contact with aliens?
I am glad you asked that, Jennifer. I have learned that it is very scary to have them show up in your bedroom, of course, when you're not expecting. Since then, actually, by the way, they've been very good at leaving little hints. In fact, I think the last time they visited my room, they knocked on my wall 3 times before they showed up, which was very interesting. And you might hear this from other experiencers. So as I have continued working with them, and I realized that they're not going to hurt me, that they are invested in me in some fashion. A lot of experiencers are women, and there might be some aspect, there's some kind of program going on with reproduction there. And obviously, that's not the reason they visited me. And I've got to kind of figure that out. But I think they've invested in me, in my psychic ability, to try to make stronger connections with humans and for us to be able to communicate with them. They wanted to light up that part of the radio dial that's been dormant in me, I think, and they've been working to do that and showing me things that can be done. But I don't consider myself unusual at all. I'm not one of the chosen few. I hate the term starseed. I roll my eyes whenever I hear people say that. I'm flesh and blood human like everybody else, and there's nothing that I can do that people also can't learn how to do. And it's the same. I think that's one of their messages, is that we can do some neat things, but we're not all knowing. We're not all powerful. The other thing I wanted to say here is that they make mistakes. They're not infallible. You read lots of stories about people that get abducted and they wind up coming back with somebody else's clothes, from the UFO, and they have no idea of how that happened. So and they make mistakes, like when they were doing that. Yeah, that happens. And when they were doing that procedure on me, they hurt me, and I woke up from whatever was happening. And I think that was a mistake, that they don't like it when people break that hypnosis the way I did. By the way, if you're an experiencer and you want to really know what's going on and see through those screen memories, one thing you can do is, like I said, keep a dream journal so you know what dream symbols are floating around in your head. And the second thing is learn how to lucid dream, because lucid dreaming teaches you to be very discerning in your dreams and to test reality at all times. There was one dream I had where I was talking with two aliens, and I was considering it a dream until I started to realize, wait a second, aliens don't exist. You're figments of my imagination. And I confronted them. And instead of like going away or turning into something else, they just looked at each other with this kind of sigh sort of look in their face, like, oh, he thinks we're dream aspects of him or something, but they really weren't. And so I found that was a very interesting thing. But what I've learned from them is my psychic abilities are there for me to try out, that a lot of the things that are only rumored that you hear that humans can do, we can actually do. So I think the underlying lesson is that there's nothing we are doing that you can't learn how to do. And I think most of them want us to figure that out and start doing it ourselves. Yeah.
I agree with that 100%. Definitely.
Love had another question here. Have you heard rumblings of Mount Everest lately?
I don't think Mount Everest is actually a volcanic mountain, so I don't know really anything going on with that. No.
And I had a quick question about meditation. Does that help with this at all?
Yes, very good question. The information you get from remote viewing is very subtle, and it can seem like it's imagination. It can pop into your head, and then you can embellish it very quickly with a runaway imagination. It is very challenging to amplify that signal in any meaningful way. The best way to do it is to silence everything else. So if you meditate and you can still your mind and sort of keep that imagination at bay, then that is one of the most helpful things you can do in being successful at remote viewing. So yes, it helps.
That's good to know.
Queen Peachy here is asking, have you ever had to sign an NDE?
NDA for this? No, nobody's ever asked me to do anything like this. I've never been connected with any kind of official things. Obviously, when I was in the military and I worked with military secrets, I signed an agreement there never to talk about that, and I will honor that agreement. But there was no aliens or psychic stuff involved with that at all. So I'm very open to this, and the reason, like I said, is because when I talk about these cool things that have happened to me, I often will have other people mention things, and I'm the kind of person who likes to point out the elephant in the room. So ask me anything, I'll be willing to talk about it.
And Jennifer wants to know, have you met any other aliens besides the Greys?
Another good question from Jennifer. Yes. When I was in the had that medical procedure, I vaguely recall different faces above me, and there were, I think, two grays, one gray on either side, and the being in front, who was apparently doing the process, had a different shaped face. I don't know if it was a tall gray versus the small grays that I'd seen in my room, or it was a mantid. And I'm still trying to discern the difference between all of them. But that's what I remember basically consciously. And I've never had actually a regression, so I couldn't tell you any more details about that. But yeah, I think there's been more than one. Mm-hmm.
And then Lex wants to know, when lucid dreaming, what does it mean when you just like to fly around?
Yes. Okay. So learning how to remote view is very cool. Lucid dreaming is very cool. So both of those things are in the top 5 things I ever learned how to do. There's a book by a man called Dr. Stephen LaBerge, Laberge, called Exploring the World of Lucid Dreaming. Right. I think it's a best-selling paperback. And I got this book probably in the late 1990s or something. And it talks about how you can learn how to lucid dream. So a lucid dream is different from an ordinary dream in that you're bringing your everyday consciousness into your subconscious, your unconscious world. And it is like the ultimate playground. You can control your dreams. You can manipulate them any way you like. You are fully there. It's not just like watching a movie, like your typical dream. You are immersed in this environment that your mind, your imagination has created. And it's a highly psychic area too, because those two parts of your mind are directly interacting. Your left brain and your right brain are there together. So it is one of the most incredible things, better than any drugs you could possibly take. You can fly, you can meet celebrities, you can go back in time, you can have out-of-body experiences from that state. I've actually gotten the winning lottery numbers in a lucid dream before.
Wow.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Buying that book.
Yes, get the book. And
I'm buying it. I'm on Amazon as we speak.
Good. Yeah, no, it's fantastic and great resource. And he did all this science, but the gist of it is that you train yourself during the day to test whether or not this is a dream. So you might have an alarm set on your watch for every hour that beeps, a chime. And every time you hear that chime, you ask, am I asleep or am I awake? Am I dreaming or am I awake? If you see something unusual, like, maybe a UFO or something appears over the sky, which, it could happen in your reality. Ask yourself, am I dreaming? Am I awake? Or you see a car crash in front of you. Am I dreaming or am I awake? You start to train your waking consciousness to test things. And if you get into that habit at night, when you're asleep and you're in your dream, you will automatically start doing it there too. And then when you start to notice things are out of place, you're in front of a green alien or whatever, you'll say, wait a second, this doesn't normally happen in real life. I must be dreaming. And that's when the whole world changes and you get drawn into the dream and everything becomes as realistic as if you were looking at it in waking life. So cool. So that's really the gist of it. Yeah. Just train yourself to test reality all times, and you'll start doing that in your sleep. And when you do, you'll have a lucid dream, and then you can do anything, which
I'm going to be dreaming very differently now.
Yeah. No, get the book. Get the book. That was very helpful for me. And it's gone through several editions now, and there's probably some neat new things you can do. Like there's a type of drug, I think, that's used for ADHD that might also have some other uses for lucid dreaming. And Dr. LaBerge has written, he's done a study on this recently. Lucid dreamers will take this at night when they wake up and they're trying to attempt a lucid dream, and then like it increases their odds of having a lucid dream by like 40%. So pretty dramatic. So there's a lot of cool things doing that. But if you do learn how to lucid dream, you will absolutely be a better remote viewer, because again, you're building those bridges between your waking consciousness and your subconsciousness, which knows everything. And that collaboration will also take place in remote viewing. Yeah. Knowing yourself is really what it's all about.
Well, we've come to the end of our time.
Well, no,
Um,
wait. I'll
okay,
ask Love to Love's question. And I have one more question before we go.
okay, hit it.
Okay. All right.
What do you think about ley
Uh,
lines, and what do you think is
yeah.
under Pilot Mountain, the mound? I didn't normally consider much about ley lines until I traveled to southern Utah, and that place was buzzing with energy, as I had been told. And once I actually was there and I experienced this, I was like, yeah, there's some magic that's happening in this area. So I became very sensitive to it, and now I'm a believer in ley lines. Yeah. As far as Pilot Mountain, not really sure. There's a lot of stuff going on. I know there's a lot of Bigfoot sightings in the Uwharrie Forest nearby.
Mm.
And where there's Bigfoot, there's almost certainly aliens. So it would not surprise me. North Carolina is one of the hot spots of UFO sightings. And I think there's
Yeah,
a reason
it
for
is.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of
Absolutely.
stuff going on here.
So I just have one more thing. I dream a lot lately, especially about these three aliens that come and visit me in my room, and they stand over me and they watch me sleep.
Hmm.
Oftentimes when I'm sleeping, I feel like they're outside my bedroom door, like they're watching me through the door.
Hmm.
Um, but a few nights ago, I was trying to go to sleep. I wasn't quite asleep, but I remember feeling like just as I'm getting comfortable, a big shove hit the end of my bed. And I wasn't asleep by any means, but I was just in that comfortable state.
Hmm.
And of course, I woke up, or not woke up, but I opened my eyes and nothing was there.
Hmm.
But do you feel like that has more of a connection to people who've actually have been abducted? Or do you feel like that's just the natural thing to dream like that?
Again, I think it comes back to what you're receptive to, and not all people, would pay attention to that sort of thing. Again, that's also a very highly psychic state when you're sort of right there on the edge of sleeping and dreaming. So I've heard like voices and stuff when I'm just at that level right below waking up,
Mhm.
something calling my name, someone calling my name. And I know that didn't actually in the room. So yeah, it's possible that that you're tuned into something there when you're dealing with that. And because you've had experiences with aliens and stuff, you're probably just more sensitive to that.
Yeah.
Hmm.
One more thing before we go. My son and I were standing in the kitchen, and we both at the exact same time saw this very tall, black, grayish, shadowy thing come around a corner and kind of look at us.
Hmm.
Um, when we first saw it, I mean, it was like identical at the exact same time. He looked at me like, Mom. And like I said earlier, my son has autism. He's 16.
Hmm.
And he said, Mom, did you see that thing? And I said, yes, I saw it. Well, then he explained it. And at first, it was like my mind didn't know how to process it because I
Hmm.
was like, well, what was that? Because it almost had this thing coming out the side of its arms or head or something. So at
Interesting.
first, in my mind, I thought, was that a horn? But then the way he described it later sounded like a mantid.
Hmm.
And so we don't understand where that came from or why it was here one night, but we
Mhm.
both saw it at the exact same time. And it was probably a good like 6'5" or so.
Wow. Super tall.
So yeah, we never did know exactly what to make of that.
Yeah. I think aliens can be around us and completely invisible, and we can feel them and sometimes see them. But yeah, they have a way of slipping in and out of our reality that way. So it's quite possible that's what that was. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. It has been an absolute pleasure having you
I've
on
enjoyed it too.
tonight.
Yeah.
Oh,
Fantastic,
thank you so much
fantastic.
for coming on and doing this with us. I'm actually glad Dave wasn't here tonight.
Yeah. I mean, everything works out for a reason, right? So
Yeah, it sure
yeah.
does. And I'm going to be looking into all this. So I'm very, very interested in learning more.
Anybody can do the kind of stuff I've learned how to do, and that's one thing I want to leave everybody with. There's nothing special about it if you're willing to put in the time to learn it. And
Mhm.
yeah, it's a crazy, very, very interesting world out there. So
Well,
So,
thank you
where
again.
can people, yeah, thank you very much. Where can people get a hold of you?
I post on Twitter, even though generally not very impressed with the company with the place, but you can find me at Mark Turner ETC there. I
Uh-huh.
have a blog which is more routine kind of stuff, markturner.net. You can email me there too. I think there's my emails out there. And a come join me every month at the Rhine, third Wednesday, and we can practice remote viewing, and I'll show you some more tricks.
Coming.
Right on.
Yeah.
I
Wonderful.
want to learn more for sure. I'm writing all this down.
Cool.
That's awesome. So what time is it? Is it like a Zoom thing?
It's a Zoom thing. Yeah, we've got people that join from all around the world, and it's starts at 7 p.m. ET Eastern time, and normally goes until about 8:30 Eastern.
Okay, perfect.
Third Wednesday
Awesome.
of the
Well,
month.
thank you again. This has
Yeah.
been awesome. I
Yeah.
absolutely love this show. Thank
Thanks.
you for coming on. I can't wait to talk to you again and learn more.
Great. Yeah, I look forward to coming back. Thanks for the invite, and yeah, enjoyed it. Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thank you. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. Have a great night. Oh my God.